I will call the Select Board meeting for the Town of Essex for Monday, May 6th to order. Uh, First item on the agenda, I won't say order of business, agenda additions and changes.
One from staff, we forgot to include it on this agenda, but if any public have comments on consent items, that should be made during public to be heard. And I believe there might be some other changes from select.
Yes, I would like to request that we pull item D and item F out of the consent agenda.
Is adding them as L and M respectively acceptable?
Yes, that's fine.
Any others?
We do have this public works items. They are here. I'm going to put it into the agenda, so.
Let's put it as H and I.
Yeah.
And just move the others down accordingly. Anybody else? I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Moving right along to public to be heard. If you're in the room, raise your physical hand. If you're online, you can raise your virtual hand by pressing the reactions button, and there's an option to raise your hand after hitting that button. When you do speak, please state your name for the record. Please be brief, be respectful, and please direct your comments to the chair. In the room, I see Betsy Dunn.
Betsy Dunn. And I have a question about the new grounds and the facility that when we build our new town's offices and all. Are we thinking about having community gardens? You know, when we were doing the town plan and people were putting out things that they thought were really important, they really thought having community gardens would be really very good. And a lot because they were thinking of the climate change and how much the expense of vegetables and things of that nature are going to be, and maybe people would be very appreciative of people who are in apartments don't have the access to a grounds that they can do anything. And I know that John Lang, when we were doing those conversations, said he had property that he could probably throw into that. So maybe if we're not going to do it, maybe he'll do it. But I really think it's really an important thing. Second thing, and last thing, is, you know, the Saxon Hill sand pits and everything that Al Senegal is working on taking out sand. Who calculates how much he's taken out? Because that's how much he's supposed to get when in that, I was reading through it, I was like, this makes no sense. How do we know what he's doing?
Would you like to?
Yeah, we can start with going order.
Do we have a contract following the RFP at this point?
For up Main Street?
Yeah.
It hasn't been signed yet, but
It
we're
hasn't
pretty
been
close.
signed.
Yeah,
Part of the RFP that the select board said to move ahead with for 8090 Upper Main Street was the community visioning and the public input for that plot. I do suspect that others feel the same as you do around community gardens. I'm one of those. So I do expect that those will come out as the community is engaged, excuse me, in those efforts. And
Yep, and regarding Saxon Hill, there's a settlement agreement in place and a permit over the sand extraction. It is tracked. He's allowed, the owner, Al Senecal, is allowed to do a few acres. I forget if it's 5 or 6 at a time. Once that's done and reclaimed, he can move on to the next one, and so on and so forth. So it is being tracked as to how much he's taking out, when he can go on to the next one, stuff like that. It's going slower than had originally been anticipated, last I heard, but we are keeping track of it through the community development office.
Because, just as a question, wasn't there a 16-year plan for it or something?
I think it was maybe 20 years, and I don't remember for certain, but there was an option to revisit after 20 years and see where it was at and go from there.
Okay, and I think we're coming up on that in fairly short order.
It's been less than 10 years. I've been 7 or 8 years.
Thank you.
thank you, Betsy. Any other public input, comment, questions?
think Paul Davis had his
Yeah, he had his
hand up.
Yes.
Go
Can
ahead.
you hear
Paul.
me?
Yes.
You guys interviewed me last week for the Conservation Trails Committee, or last meeting. And perhaps I wanted to make sure I got this right. Was it you were going to wait until this meeting to see if there were further applicants, or was it further out than that?
I don't think that we made any decisions on how long we were waiting, but we don't need to appoint until July 1st, the term starts. So I think it's anticipated that we'll take action at our June meeting,
In June.
Second meeting.
probably the second meeting in June.
Okay. All right. So you don't need me on this one, it sounds like. Will you?
You're welcome to stay, though.
Yeah. I got to put my kid to bed in a minute, so not for long. But so will you need me in June? Likely.
No, we won't. If we've already interviewed you, that interview will stand until and inform our decisions in June.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other items for public to be heard? Seeing none, we will move along to the consent agenda. Again, absent D and F as they exist on the agenda.
Make the motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Moving along to our first business item of the evening, 6A, interview a volunteer to serve on the Police Community Advisory Board, Gwendolyn Evans. I do see Gwendolyn is online this evening. Gwendolyn, if you want to go ahead and take yourself off mute, tell us a little about yourself and why you're interested in the position.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for this opportunity. So I've been serving on the PCAB board since August of last year. And I think a one-year term is an awfully short term, especially for a new committee, new board. We're just getting started. I have absolutely been enjoying my time and been enthralled with what I'm learning about the Essex Police. I feel like I'm creating a niche to help with things like outreach, and we're trying to start a blog, and I feel very committed to this process. I'm absolutely surprised at how I've really dived into this. So going from something that I wasn't sure if I would have a voice in, it seems very positive to me right now. And I think that, we still are new. We have a lot of work to do to make the community aware of us and to help the police department. So that's sort of what I'm doing. I have a background in human services. I am a person with a disability, and I think that's pretty crucial to having a voice in the community. I will also admit that I'm a person who's aging, and I think having voices of the elders is important as well.
Open it up for board questions.
You answered part of my question that I had in mind, but I was gonna ask you for a couple of details on things that you've found helpful or things that you've accomplished with outreach and ideas you've had.
Well, we we are working on contacting various and sundry human service agencies that work with people in the Essex town and city. And I know that one of our stumbling blocks has just been, how do we communicate and how do we follow the open meeting laws? So we're working and learning at the same time. We are also, each of us has taken on some human service agencies or organizations to be in touch with. I just wrote a letter myself, and I think that's one of the stumbling blocks is some people are just a little afraid to how to start this process. So I think, yeah, we're moving forward with that. The other thing that I want to do, and I've barely started, is I want to have a blog, and we've already posted something on our town page, but we'd like to have a reflection of each one of the board's members, who they are and why they joined this group and how they see it working. So any way that I can think of to engage is really important.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm all set.
Yeah, Gwendolyn, I was wondering if you could make a few comments about what being a public servant means to you.
Wow. This is a lot bigger than I anticipated it being. When I first applied for this position last year, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea that I was going to have to be interviewed by the select board. And when I found that out, that made me quite nervous. But I've gotten over that. And in terms of this particular group, at first I was looking for something that would fit my skills and I could volunteer and have a sense of meaning and purpose. And being involved with the community, this is even better. As time has gone on, and I've learned so much more about the Essex Police Department and who they are, what they're trying to do with the community, their values, I've become more and more impressed. And I really want the community to be understanding more. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
They're very good comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Dawn, any questions from you? And Gwendolyn, I will ask, do you have any questions for us?
I don't think so. I can't think of any questions for you guys. Would this be another one-year term? Is that the way?
I believe the terms were set up the way they were because it is a new board,
Mhm.
a new commission, so that as time goes on, they will be 3-year terms, correct? Yeah, so that it will be a full 3-year term starting July 1st.
Oh, okay, all right. And I'm happy with that. This has been a very good thing for my mental health as well as for connecting with the community. So I just want to say that I'm happy to be serving in this way. And as a person with a disability, often we don't think about our capacity to serve and be a voice in the community. So I'm happy to offer that as well.
Very much appreciate that. As stated earlier, we likely won't make any appointments this evening. We may later. If we do, you will be contacted. But the term doesn't start until July 1st, so we'll likely take this up at our second meeting in June.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And we do have a second interview, item B, to serve on the Essex Free Library Board of Trustees. Marie, I apologize, Marie Froschel? Gold star. Come on up.
Ethan knows how to see it, say it. He used to be one of my students. I hope he won't hold that against me.
Just don't tell him.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the Library Board of Trustees.
I've lived in Essex for 40 years, even though you can't tell by the accent. I've served 2 terms on the library board, and before that, I was the liaison between the Friends of the Library and the board. And one thing, I think it's a way of giving back to the community. The staff at the library is awesome, and it's a good way to support them. One of the main things I think that's been accomplished, especially in the last 3 years, is figuring out the difference of responsibilities between the Friends of the Library and the trustees. And I think we've done a great job of figuring that out, and I even understand it now. So that's really important. I think we have a great staff, and we need to work on keeping it. The other thing is, going forward, having done this for 6 years, I feel like I have a handle on what's going on and would like to continue that. How do I want to say this? It's important as a board member not, to give input, but to also listen well. And I try to do that.
Open it up for board questions.
What do you think the future of the Essex Free Library looks like?
I'm hoping it looks like we're going to be over there where the new town offices are. As all of you know that have been in the library, it's a space crunch. When somebody, needs to come up the elevator, and we're in the process of sorting books for the book sale, it gets interesting.
It does.
I think that the staff has done a great job of expanding program, and I think there is a limit to that because of the space. For instance, before COVID, we started doing something like Cook the Books, which I found out about in Williston, which was we had a cookbook, and people could take a recipe from that cookbook and cook it and then bring it to the library and share it. Which it was neat, but after COVID, it didn't happen again. And it's just those things like that become more challenging in the limited space. I think it's a beautiful building. It's just needs to be bigger. So unless you can get those people behind us to sell their building, I think moving is what needs to happen.
Thank you, Marie.
Can you tell me a time where you had a disagreement and how you guys got to a solution?
I think there are times during our discussions. I can't think of one in particular right now. Well, actually, when we write policy, sometimes we'll have a difference of opinion on how the policy should be written and what should be included. And we just work it out. We share our ideas and come to some kind of a mutual understanding and agreement. One of them was about the whether or not to offer the Narcan. That went back and forth a little bit. And the consensus became that we were going to do it.
Just to follow up on Don's question a little bit, have the trustees any idea what to do to repurpose the building? Should you move to the new building?
I think it could be used as a different community space, but we really haven't gone there much. Sometimes now we actually use the Memorial Hall for some of our events, but I'm sure that the building we're in now, which is a beautiful building, could be used for other community events and meetings.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, so you know my wife is the chair of the trustees, so when
know
it
that,
comes,
Andy.
so when it comes time to make the decision whether to reappoint you, I will be recusing myself, just so, just to make that clear.
I understand.
But I'm gonna ask a question.
Yeah.
If you can make some comments about your thoughts about what it means to be a public servant.
Well, I think it's important for all of us to give back in some way, shape, or form. And when I was teaching, that was limited to some extent because other things took up my my time. But being a public, it just means helping the community. I mean, there's so many things that can be done. For instance, what we, at the library, we do a plant sale and a book sale, and we get the community, the gardens in place, but it's just a way of giving back, and it's very gratifying to me to do that.
Good.
Thank you.
All right.
The only question I have is, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah. What is there any place in your long-term plans to move the library?
I believe we can discuss that on Wednesday night at our strategic planning session, as well as the upcoming community outreach for 8090 Upper Main Street.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next up for the Energy Committee, we have Dorothy Bergendahl. Come on up and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested. Excuse me.
Yes. I'm Dorothy Dottie Bergendahl, and I am serving on the Energy Committee right now, despite the fact that I live in the city. But first of all, I thank you all for letting me serve on the Energy Committee because I have found it very interesting. I've enjoyed it, and I think I bring some good ideas to the Energy Committee. I do not have a working background because I was blessed with a husband who managed to support us. So I'm an inveterate volunteer. And one of my volunteer activities in the past was with the former power company out of Rutland, which was called Vermont Public Service. And while serving on their customer advisor board, I got to go on a tour of Vermont Yankee and up to the dam in Quebec. And we spent years discussing how Vermont was going to maintain its energy supply. So I think I bring some unique things to the committee. And I enjoy working with the people on the committee.
Board question. In no particular order.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just curious, how long have you been serving on the committee?
I believe I have one full term,
3.
maybe 3 years, maybe a little less than that. It was after 2020.
Yeah. Awesome. And then to follow that question, I'm fairly newer to the select board, so some people I don't know
You know,
because
I
3
live
years ago I wasn't here.
barely in the city.
Right.
I'm up on Taft Street.
But my question for the purpose of knowing that was going to be, in your time serving on the committee, what are some things that you've helped move along, or new policy, or
Well, I think I can get some of the credit for having the committee present at last year's Champlain Valley Exposition.
Awesome.
I introduced to the committee the idea that that was a place where we could reach out. And I feel that the committee's biggest job is to reach out to the community and inform them about what is happening in the energy sector, in the climate change. You can't separate them. As last summer proved to us, we have to pay attention. And I pointed out to the committee that to reach the most people, the place to be is at the Champlain Valley Fair. So we were there for 5 days. It took a bit of work. It took months of work getting organized for it. And we are currently trying to organize again, to do it again, but we can't do it alone as the Essex Energy Committee. There aren't enough of us. We need to combine the efforts with all the energy committees in Chittenden County to have enough people to man the booth. And then there's all sorts of information you can pass out. I picked this up this morning in Colchester, and in here is a list of all the federal and state incentives that you can offer to people. And there's a lot of stuff coming out of Montpelier in the next few days, weeks, years, and a lot of stuff coming out of Washington that the population of the town and the city need to know about so that they can try and take advantage of it. Just as my husband and I took advantage of putting solar on our house, getting Tesla power walls instead of a generator, and I drive a hybrid. And I'll continue to drive a hybrid, and hopefully a plug-in hybrid eventually. There's a lot of information. Reaching the people who need to know it is the biggest job, in my opinion, of the Energy Committee. But also there's the job of informing all of you of what is possible, what is available, what is advantageous, what is real.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other questions?
I'm curious if the existing energy committee liaisons with the city committee?
If it does, it's probably me. And I can think of 2 occasions where I learned something at the committee meeting and passed the information on to someone I knew in city government in the city.
Okay.
Usually dealing with something out of Montpelier. But as far as I know, there are no plans in the city to put together an energy committee.
Oh, really? Interesting. Well, thank you.
Don, Andy?
All right. My question is the same question I've asked the others about your thoughts about what it means to you to be a public servant.
Well, it means that I am involved in the community. I've never run for an election. I've never had a paying job, except for a year and a half of teaching early in my married life in New York State. So it gives me an opportunity to learn what's going on, meet with people. I'm very active with the Brownell Library, if some of you may know that. Through first the Friends, and then I'm a library trustee for eons because of the way Mr. Brownell put together the board. And I've also worked with the foundation. And I love doing that type of volunteering. So I get a lot of satisfaction out of it.
Thank you.
And Don, did you have a question? My only question for you is, do you have any questions for us?
Well, as you look into building the new facilities in, 8090 North Main, what kind of energy plans do you have? What are you going to do? Is there going to be solar? Are you going to have heat pumps? Are you going to have geothermal heat pumps? What's going to happen?
Again, we're not sure until the community outreach happens, but I do hope that the Energy Committee will play a voice in those outreach efforts.
I'm sure the Energy Committee is ready and eager to pass on any information we can glean for you.
Good. And again, we probably won't take action until second meeting in June, but staff will be in touch when that occurs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. 6C, moving on to 6D, consider approval to initiate tax sale procedures. Greg, do you have an intro for this item?
I'm going to mostly turn it over to Dan, but in accordance with our newly updated tax sale policy, it looks like we trigger the need to go to a tax sale. I'll let Dan speak to the details of that and decide how you want.
Take it away, Dan.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So as you know, we made revisions, the select board made revisions to the tax sale policy at the beginning of last month. The analysis date for whether we decide to do tax sales within the finance department occurred on May 1st. As of that date, we had a little over $379,000 in delinquent taxes on our list, delinquent taxes, fees, penalties. And that created a result of 3.5% when compared to our current property tax revenue number for this fiscal year. So in this new revised state, we have triggered our tax sale policy for properties that exceed $10,000 in delinquencies. For the property list, that involves 10 properties, 6 of which are in the town, 4 of which are in the city. We do have amounts ranging from $10,000 in delinquencies up to $48,000 across those 10 properties. And we are hopeful that, now that we've made that revision to this policy, that the select board, we're asking that we potentially move forward with going through the procedures for the tax sale. A first step with this could be speaking with our legal counsel this later this week.
Questions?
I would make sure that the legal fees can be recoverable. I would expect that they would be.
Yes, yeah. So we have staff who have attended delinquent tax collecting and tax sale policy procedures. So we are, adept at all the VLCT requirements for following procedure for that to happen. So yes, we do expect to recoup fees along the way for any legal services or other in terms of certified mail, anything like that.
So as we move forward here, at least in the initial stages here, when we're contacting folks, letting them know that they're subject to this, I assume many of them or we've already let people know that they're delinquent. They do have the option of setting up a payment plan to avoid losing their home, right? Is that
correct? Yes. So as part of the policy, on a monthly basis, we have been contacting people on the delinquent tax list. So it's a regular procedure in our office. As one of the steps outlined in the policy, if a delinquent taxpayer can pay 50% of that value up front and set up an agreement for the remainder of their amount that they owe, then that would be, and as long as they keep up with the payments that they agree to in a repayment schedule, then they would be removed from the tax sale list. And as long as those payments are coming in, then they would be excluded from that procedure.
To go along with what Andy just said, would it be possible to send a letter to the residents that are in that position, since it is the first tax sale that the town's had in a long time?
Can you talk a little bit about the outreach that's been done so far?
Yeah, so in our regular procedures on a monthly basis, we send letters to our delinquent tax people on the list. In this most recent cycle, so as in mid-April, after the new policy, revised policy had been updated, we also mailed out a copy of that policy to those that we figured would be affected by it. So it has stimulated some calls from people. There's been some activity in a couple cases. And so we're hopeful that that will kind of continue. You know, with the next step of possibly having the tax sale procedures, you know, continue, we hope that'll provoke more activity and contact and outreach with some of the people who would be affected on this list.
So are you going to send a registered letter to them if you're putting it up for tax sale?
So we will discuss with the lawyers on Friday
I just,
all the proper procedures for that.
Okay.
I'm not going to
I know.
elaborate step by step what exactly we'll do without that.
Okay. Sending a regular letter, regular mail sometimes doesn't quite
Yeah.
grab them the way you want to get their attention.
Yeah. I believe the first step would be to send a regular letter, and then if there's no real response, I forget what the time period is, then we would go to a certified mailing where an acknowledgement of receipt would take place. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and maybe you can tell me this is off topic, but looking at the report, and then also I asked the question about how many folks missed their second payment. There's something on the order of 150 people who didn't make their second payment. I think something like 120 of them have since
Yes, in that window.
caught up on their payment there, but then there are, and then also looking at it, because we've been talking around this for a couple of years, I have the last 3 years of delinquent reports from May 1st each of the years, and there are people that are repeat offenders with regard to not making their second payment, and although I know those folks aren't subject to the tax sale, the fact that they're delinquent does get highlighted in the report. It's just the question, you know, we mail out one bill a year and expect people to remember where that little piece of paper is and remember that March 15th is coming up and it's time to send in their taxes. Is there anything that we can do or should we do to help those folks remember so that they don't?
We have discussed this a little bit internally in our finance department. Maybe the best step would be to send a postcard in late February, possibly. Obviously, there'd be a bit of an expense with that, but it could help in the long run, you know, not have 120 people miss a date and end up paying by May 1st. So it could provoke more people to pay in a timely fashion and you know, be an equitable way, I guess, to affect tax payments being received.
Oops, sorry.
Just to speak to one step that we have tried to do, we, in the annual report this year, put a note in there, a reminder, that taxes are due. I guess it probably wasn't as successful as we would have liked or hoped, so we'll explore other options. I think the postcard is definitely worth talking about and looking into. But we are trying to notify people. That reflects how much people actually look at the town plan. Or, sorry, not the town plan, annual report.
We could look back at the history like we've done today for that March 16th to May 1st window and see if it's been similar the last couple of years too. I don't know the answer to that, but maybe that could provide some insight onto how often that's happening too.
So how many parcels do we have that?
Oh, it's in the low 4,000 range. This is including businesses and yeah.
Okay, so 150 is
so
0.5%.
yeah.
It's a small number, percentage-wise. So yeah, I guess that would be a consideration. Is it worth the expense?
Maybe 3 or 4%. Yeah.
But I assume many of those people that had to pay a penalty and interest are not happy about having to pay.
Sure. Yeah. And obviously we do have, you know, automatic payment options if people want to turn over their bank information and apply just like we do with our utility bills, as you know. So there's options to pay electronically so that you don't forget.
Just a clarifying question. Everybody gets mailed the town report, right? I would think that we could do a more robust notice in the town report versus a separate postcard suggestion.
Well, we have Tammy's Town newspaper too. So.
Yeah. And a newsletter. So.
I think we used that. I'll double check, but I think.
No, I'm just saying that's just another.
Yeah, that doesn't go to everybody. You have to sign up for.
Right.
How much does it cost to mail all the tax bills out for the year?
Oh,
Roughly?
got me.
Rough estimate?
I'd probably couple $1,000s. That we
Okay.
have the printing and mailing combined
Yeah.
with one vendor. I'd say it's in that range.
I was just thinking if it
Yeah,
was
so
a
sending two
considerable amount of money to
Sending
send
two
out
bills would
to,
double the cost. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if it's $3,000, it's $6,000.
Or even in the case of a postcard, if we knew who our we do know who our electronic payers are, if we could kind of isolate the data and just say, who would be our people coming in the door, mailing in checks, try and pinpoint it to some degree, maybe.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you guys know, but like everybody that has escrowed taxes,
Right.
like my tax bill doesn't mean anything to me because somehow they get it from the town. They don't even have to send them the paper anymore. They just know. They overestimate all the time, steal my money, but that's a different story.
Any other board questions? Excuse me. And for excuse me. For clarification, there were 10 properties that met the criteria. One is on a payment plan,
Yeah, there is.
and
yeah.
there was no one who requested abatement as a result. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any abatement requests at this time.
Okay.
The only request is something different than that.
All right, so hearing no other questions or conversation from the board, I'll open it up for public comment. Any comment in the room or online? Seeing none, bringing it back to the board.
Make the motion the select board authorize the staff to move forward with the tax sale procedures in accordance with the tax sale policy.
Thank you, Dawn. Is there a second?
Second.
Kendall,
Steph
thank you
moved
for the second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Dan, thank you. Next up, discussion potential action proposed fiscal year 25 water sewer budget and rates.
In your packet today, or this evening, Dan and I, a memo, kind of a discussion. Possible changing budget for some portion of how it affects the. What I think we do is go forth and present the original budget that we had done out the budget memo for the 4/15 select board meeting, kind of go over all the ins and outs of this year's budget, and then we can discuss rates and or changing how we go forth from there. But so if you turn to page 73 in your packet, see, I remembered this year you have different page numbers in my binder. Get my eyes on.
Right, 73 first.
73.
1, 2.
Right.
I'm using
Issue
the-
before you today.
Overview.
Did you get it? 73?
73 is
Yep, 73.
another memorandum,
Water and sewer budget and rates.
water sewer budget rates.
Yeah.
That's where you want us to go?
Yeah,
instead of the
let's
other?
start there versus the memo that starts on
Okay.
page 67. And then we can, like I said, we can discuss the different rates and how the impacts of budgeting full-time employees is going to. Issue before you tonight is whether the select board will approve the proposed water and sewer budget, including proposed rate structure for the FY 2025 water and sewer budget. This year, water rates for FY 25 had an overall increase of 5.8% in budgeted line items, with this scenario resulting in a 1.6% rate increase. If you take a look at the little table here below, I've shortened it a bit from past budgets. I went 10 years here. If you take a look over the past 10 years, the 5-year average for rate increases has been around 2.64%, and the 10-year average is at 2.98%. Staff also proposes increasing the minimum water charge from $190 a year to $210 per year to better reflect the actual cost to purchase 100 gallons GPD of water a day. There is no proposed increase this year on the water initiation fees or connection fees. There are two major impacts this year on the water budget. Consistently, treatment costs are always a large portion of the water budget, which roughly came in around 47% this year. And also, staff is proposing increasing repairs and maintenance budget for water by $18,000 to better reflect the costs associated with maintaining our system. It seems like in the past we tend to overrun this, 1 or 2 good breaks, and it wipes out that whole line item in a year. So we're cognizant of that, and we want to add more money in there to kind of buffer us a little bit moving forward. FY25 sewer rates saw an overall 11% increase in budgeted line items with a corresponding 6.7% rate increase. Similar to the water budget, treatment costs for sewer make up about 38% of the budget. Also associated with some of the costs to investigate and monitor our sewer system itself. II is going to be a big issue this year. We're going to be out running a lot of our back runs. Some of our lines reside very close to wetlands, and the water table in and around those is very high. So we're going to be doing quite a bit of II studying this year. And then continuation with the pump station operation and maintenance contract that we now have with Champlin Associates. That's coming in at about 11.6% of the total budget. Table below here, again, 5-year average rate increase for sewer has been on the order of 3.3%, and the 10-year at 4.98. General issues this year with the budget, the big one, in my opinion, and I'm sure the gentleman sitting next to me here, is to continue with maintaining the sewer and water funds on a firm financial basis by continuing to set aside adequate funds for asset replacement within our systems. System stabilization is critical to us being able to maintain our infrastructure. And the money we do put aside each year helps us that much more. Also, the need to continue to reduce unaccounted for water and wastewater losses. We made some pretty good leaps and bounds to kind of put our water loss rate down using the acoustic leak survey that we just completed. It took us 3 years, but we finally got there. We're going to be looking at doing some leak monitoring within the system. That's kind of the next phase. We don't want to waste all that money we spent on our survey of our system. We kind of want to stay on it, and one way is to continuously monitor for leaks within our system. And then the third item is continue to work with our new consultant, Champlin Associates, to help us optimize our 17 municipal sanitary sewer pump stations. They've helped quite a bit thus far. There was a learning curve there. We've had some hiccups. They're coming around. But this is offering us the opportunity to adjust some of our preventative maintenance on our systems and avoid large equipment failures and or after-hour call-outs on the system, decreasing. On the next page here, would be 75. There's a table here of system stabilization accounts. Kind of gives us a 10-year look on what we've been setting aside for both water and sewer. Currently in FY24, we budgeted for 160,000, but the actual depreciation for both water and sewer was on the order of 150,243. This year, working with finance, we decided just to kind of budget for a number that better reflects what has been found in the audit, and we settled on the 139,198 for both water and sewer. This reflects actual costs we should be putting in both water and sewer. Moving along, like I said, the second major thing we have here in the budget would be starting to account for some of our losses. I hate paying for things that we get nothing out of. We lose water, we're paying the wholesale rate, but we can't recoup the costs from our rate structure. Likewise with sewer. We have inflow into our system, whether it's the gravity in the pipes or through manholes infiltration. That's water that's going down the pipe to the treatment plant to get treated, and we're paying for that to get treated with no compensation from an end user with a bill or paying the rate. So that said, this year we're going to attack specifically the sewer infiltration. And see if we can get a better understanding of where we're at with that. Moving along to page 76, we have two tables, one for water, one for sewer. This year, the loss rate, the revenue loss rate was at 6.9 or 7%, which is a lot better than I've seen it since I've been here. I think a lot of that has to do with tracking down most of our leaks, hopefully all of them. And I know some of it has to do with the wet summer we had and the amount of usage out there. But anyways, sewer, as you can see, is 16.92%. When I calculated that this year, I mean, 2023 was definitely a wet summer. We had a lot of flooding, a lot of low areas, a lot of infiltration into our system. It's actually the highest that I've seen it in a long time. Getting that under control and getting it under control and making sure that we can start finding areas that are more susceptible to the infiltration is going to be to our benefit. Lastly, pump station operations and maintenance. As you know, we came to you last fall with a request to enter into a contract with Champlin Associates to help us maintain our pump stations throughout the community. Over the past year, we've had a difficult time trying to find and retain qualified staff to operate these systems. Last December, we lost a long-term employee to retirement. Tyler stepped up. He's our new water and sewer foreman. We just hired Fletcher Eddy as a level 3 operator a few months back. So we're starting to get our ranks back up. But utilizing Champlin Associates has kind of given us a different direction on where we're taking maintaining our infrastructure. Quite honestly, they've helped us out quite a bit with looking at it from a different perspective. They have a more technical based outlook on it, looking at trends and using the SCADA system to kind of assess the operation of each of the pump stations and kind of fine tune them. And they have done a great deal on keeping some of the costs, additional maintenance costs down. I've already seen some of the overtime that we see. And after our call outs decreasing, utilizing Champlin Associates. They're also continuing with the 24/7 on-call service, which they provide us, and the mission communications, which is basically the remote monitoring of all 17 stations now. We put our last mission controller into one of our stations, our last station, to be upgraded here last fall, I believe. So all 17 stations now can be remote monitored. All new stations constructed in town will have to have this specific system in place before we'll accept the station. So, budget analysis, right there you can see 5.8% overall increase in budgeted line items for the water, and 11% increase in the sewer. Bottom of page 77, the proposed rates. Again, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth in that previous memo regarding rates and what the proposed rate should be. But this memo, we were going forward with $6.28 per 1,000 gallons, which is an increase over the previous $6.18. Water initiation fee and connection fees will be held at the current rate of 5.9 or $5.90 per GPD of capacity and the $1,000 base. And again, we're looking to increase the minimum water charge from $1.90 to $2.10. Sewer, looking to increase from $10.91 per 1,000 to $11.65 per 1,000 gallons. Holding the initiation and connection fees as they are, and the final billing of $35. We're going to keep that the same at this point. As most of you know, you've been through this before, but the budget is basically has three parts. It has the water only budget, sewer only budget, and then a shared budget. The shared budget has a lot of our fixed costs associated with the operation of the department and all of our labor costs. This year we are changing the split between water and sewer on the shared budget, and we're going with a 60-40 split. This is mostly driven by the day-to-day operations of each of the pump stations is being completed by our contractor, subcontractor services. So it's less work that our crews have to do on the sewer side of things. So most of their work is going to be on the water side here. But we figured a 60-40 split best reflected what we're actually accomplishing out there. Bottom of page 78. Development of the rate, water rate. Essentially, we take the water budget total, inclusive of its portion of the shared budget, subtract any unbudgeted revenues, connection fees, penalties, interest that Dan finds us, and take an estimated billed usage. And this year we're going to continue on using the 675,000 GPD. Throw it into the equation there that we have under the calculation of rate, and we came up with the $6.28 per 1,000. The minimum charge we spoke to. Basically, what we have done in the past and how this is calculated is 50% of the average daily usage for a home, which equates to 100 gallons per day. The minimum rate has stayed pretty constant over the past few years. It's kind of been standing policy that when it starts dipping below 85% of what the actual minimum charge calculated using the rate or the current rate is, that we adjust. This year, it dipped below 83%, so we decided to raise it $20 for the year. And I think that got cut off on the table, so on page 80 is the other end of the table here. We're at 92%. It doesn't cover the full amount, but it's there within what we've done with past practice on keeping it at a manageable level. Development of the sewer rate, same way as the water rate. Take the operating budget that we come up with inclusive of the shared, subtract any connection fees or penalties, and using an assumed billable amount for the year of $455,000, we come up with $11.65 per thousand gallons. Effect of the rate change on a single-family home here in the community. That is connected to both water and sewer, so that was inclusive. So the new rate structure, a single-family home here in the community using the average 200 gallons per day would see a total annual bill of $1,308.83, which is a $61.26 increase over the current rates. Also equates to a 4.91% increase in this residential. Page 81, we have a couple more tables there for you to kind of show where we are with the other communities in water. We're about averaged amongst the district served systems at 628. The average retail rate is 621 currently. The bottom table here for sewer, we're on the higher side. We're just above the average retail rate with our proposed 1165. Yeah, summary. Why don't we do this? Why don't we, if you'd like, we could go back to that first memo and kind of discuss rates and how you want them to look moving forward. And what we have done, and I got Dan here to help me go through this as well.
Can we ask questions before he goes on what he's just gone over before he
Have a preference?
something else?
None at all. This is.
Go for it.
I don't want to
This is your-
interrupt. I mean, if it,
No, go for it, Don.
so there's no increase in sewer connection or water connection fees. Is that what you're saying to us? That's what you're proposing.
This year, yes.
So you're not at all concerned with the increase of building permits or people looking to build a lot, that it's going to impact your system, and given that it's in such a so often these unexpected repairs happen too, which is going to put even new hookups are going to put more stress on your old system. I'm just concerned that that's
So our next item for the capital.
all right. So I should have waited. Never.
No. Good question. Let's segue right into it. Yes, I want to increase the rates, but I want to do it the right way. I think going the route of getting a consultant to help us look at our rate structure, fee structure for not only the connection fees for new water sewer connections, but also for the fees for our day-to-day operations. There's a lot of things that we do that aren't really compensated for. Sometimes when we go knock on a door to go change a meter at the discretion of the resident, or final readings. I know the $35, that reflects admin costs internally to do the processing. Doesn't cover the cost of Tyler and his crew to go out, drive to these places throughout the community, take the handheld, get the reading, call it in. There's more to it than that. So as part of the capital, one of the capital items we have that we'll go over tonight, it will be to get a consultant, retain the services of a consultant to help us navigate where we should go with our rate structure, not only our rate structure, but also our connection fees as well.
Sorry.
No.
I was going to piggyback onto that because that should be increased because your costs to the Essex Junction facility are skyrocketing, and they will be. And that's how you recoup your capacity, which Williston is taking more capacity as well. So I would emphasize that that should be a priority to get those fees more in line with where they need to be. Because you look at other towns, we're low. So
It is, Kendall. It is our priority. And that's what's definitely driving us putting a new project on the capital plan for this coming fiscal year to get started on it. I'd like to go out for RFQ here this summer on this project and work with finance on selecting a consultant to help us through this.
sure we'll be talking about that in strategic planning meeting, right?
I'm sure we will.
I just got one quick question. Because I had to read it like 25 times, and I think I got it now, but
I had
maybe
to read
not.
it 20, Ethan, and I wrote it.
But this sentence says, within this revenue loss stream, there is water used for firefighting, water main service connection breaks, hydrant flushing losses, which do not contribute revenue and are not characterized as leaks. But these uses do represent revenue loss.
Yes.
And I only bring this up because I was curious about the sentence mostly, but water loss was down like record, right, this year?
Yeah. Yeah.
50,000 gallons is really nothing compared to what it's been.
Mm.
But I was just curious, when we flush hydrants and all that stuff, there's no way for you guys to know, like, hey, 10,000 gallons was flushing hydrants.
There is.
And that's not calculated in the loss, or it still is?
Well, that is within that loss stream, so it's in that
In that
6.98% of water loss, as well as any fire calls or
Right.
training that the fire does on our hydrants.
And that would be within the 50,000 gallons. Okay. I was just curious because, like I said, that sentence really got me there for a minute. And then I was looking at the water.
It's a bit long.
I was looking at the water loss. I'm like, this is the best year we've ever had. Probably because the water was going in the pipe this year.
This is true, and not going out. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I just didn't know if on a bad year when there's 120,000 gallons, that,
Oh, God,
you know,
no.
maybe there was, you know, more house fires and, you know,
No.
breaks where you had hydrant flushing. I don't know what it costs or what it takes to flush a hydrant. I imagine it's only probably 100 gallons, probably a couple hundred gallons. Depends.
It can be quite a volume.
Yeah,
Man sitting in the audience knows.
yeah. But I just didn't know if you know, there was a way to further calculate that you guys had. That we don't need the information, but for you guys to see it, to say, hey, we lost $25,000 from hook-ons and flushing.
Mm-hmm.
25,000 gallons, pardon me. So then, you know, like, we may only have 20,000 gallons of leaks. You know, if you guys are able to decipher the 50,000 into what's actually a leak.
So
That's my question.
when we do flow hydrants, not all the time. Sometimes we'll track the actual usage there. I mean, it's done with a calculation. Most of the flushing that we do is a lot of unidirectional flushing in the system, trying to work out all our dead ends. We do some hydrant testing, not as much as I'd like to. I think we're going to do a lot more this summer. We need to get back into doing that a bit more. But we can calculate that volume. Yes,
Thank you.
for the most part. Yep.
I think we're good for you.
To the first memo, so we're going back. Page 67.
Thank you.
In discussions with admin, management, and Dan, we knew there was some question as to regards to whether we budget all 4 full-time positions within the water sewer budget, the shared budget. Specifically because we have 2.5 at the moment, and we have majority of the sewer maintenance for the pump station is being completed and done by contracted services. So with that said, Public Works and Finance, we both worked on coming up with several alternatives to present to you tonight regarding finding or funding of full-time employees within the shared budget for water and sewer. This additional memo, supplemental memo to the water sewer budget explores a couple of options for not funding all 4 positions, creating an allowance within our budget, and kind of goes over the impacts both on what the rates would look like and any additional funding we could probably get realize within our budget that we could possibly funnel over to help fund our capital plan. I think the table that we have presented as attachment 1 on page 69 is the best place to start. I don't know if you want to speak to some of this, Dan.
Sure, yes. So the original top line in alternate 1 is the original presentation from last month of the budget. It's a $6.28 water rate, $11.65 sewer rate, and no allowance for vacancy. So assuming 4 full-time staff with that original calculation of the budget, and no corresponding net asset increase. So we were balancing our operating expenses, which led to the rates that Aaron spoke to earlier, 1.6% for the increase, sewer rate increase of 6.75%. The other items in that group, in that kind of alternative 1, consider whether we're going to have an allowance for vacancy, similar to what we do with the police department. So whether it's 1 full-time staff or 1.5 full-time, those are the corresponding 2 lines. As you can see, there's effects on the right-hand side for the allowance for vacancies, which would reduce our budget, and those would create net asset increases for the bottom line on an annual basis. In those 2 examples, creating 115,000 increases in our net asset, basically revenues over during the fiscal year. The second alternative also considers the 1 and the 1 time equivalents in the bottom 2 rows, but we're also looking to tether our water rate increase near 3%, which is pretty much our historical. So in these considerations, there's a little bit of a change in asset increase because those water rates are not quite as high as they are in the example alternative. So for example, $74,000 in the 1 person full-time equivalent allowance would be our net asset increase if our water rate was increased by 2.99%, as compared to the above example, water rate increase would be 4.37%, based on a 90. So essentially in the top section, we're only playing around with the number of full-time that we. Second example, we are also dictating a water rate 3% or. Those are the difference between the 2.
So what we wanted to do with these alternatives is to kind of give you some choices here on how to move forward on making rate structure and adjusting it in a fair and equitable manner, but also maybe realizing some more funding that we can tuck aside and allow to help us fund our capital plan. $74,000 is a smaller project on the capital plan currently. So again, our preferred, as Dan said, would be for the fixing the water rate at 3% with the one full-time allowance, full-time equivalent allowance. Yeah, and so at this point, I guess, additional in-depth questions, or were you guys settling on this first memo here regarding options and or alternatives that we laid out in attachment 1?
Andy?
So since this is, it's essentially an enterprise fund, right? So if you have money left over at the end of a year, we don't have a fund balance. It flows into your
net assets. It's the comparable fund balance.
Yeah.
We're speaking about enterprise. Last year, we basically 17. So net assets is the term for it.
Okay, and so we typically, we would just leave that net asset in case of years where we would have, we would be over on our expenses, and, okay. And so we don't, you know, in the fund balance case, we have a huge discussion about where that money should go. And I think in this case, business and enterprise fund just stays within the fund, and it compensates for years, for good and bad years.
Yes.
So, but is this, are you asking here so the net asset increase you're proposing here goes into that fund? It's not for, or is the question whether that would then go into capital? That's what I'm trying to understand.
So I think the mechanism that we can talk about in the future, we're designating a certain amount of net assets for future capital. At this point within our audit report, we've just looked a year ahead, just said, what's our capital? And we've called that our designated, along with some prepaid expenses that are hitting within the enterprise. So that's what our audit report reflects right now. In the future, I am looking to examples to kind of need to have a policy for designation within net assets. Part of it could be operating, be a capital element on how long.
So how do we fund capital now? It's the depreciation, right? Is that goes into the capital fund, or is what's?
So in the past, we have not budgeted for connection fees, interest. We now do that. That began. So in a way, any of those revenues that came from fees or other non-water, non-sewer rate income went to the total net assets with the understanding that it was helping to fund projects.
Okay.
I think we can work toward a policy where we're saying any overage in activity or in revenue over expenses from one year to another could be banked of designated future capital. That's where you're leaning.
So we fund our capital. We hope we get lucky at the end of a year and have extra net assets in order to fund our capital, or are we actually budgeting for capital? That's where I guess I'm lost a little there on your.
Yeah. So
It's the asset replacement. That's a portion of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's.
So the thing that's called depreciation on your asset, is that?
That's money that we set aside each year for replacement of assets within our infrastructure. Essentially, any large project for a water line replacement or.
So that's our major source of capital funding, is that depreciation we're paying ahead on, we're
Between those line items and whatever overages that
From year to year.
okay.
between.
Okay, and so in this case, what you're saying is that we create an allowance in our, like we've done for the police department.
Yes.
You have authorization to fully hire if you have the opportunity to do so, and then that's a different problem that we would have to deal with later, which is fine.
Mhm.
But then this creates an extra 74,000 that then likely flows into net assets that we can, if we don't hire somebody. Is that how that's?
Yeah. So if it was the case where we didn't hire anyone, we would expect to have $74,000 revenue greater than expenses.
Okay, and because we're doing it this way, we can't just say, well, that $74,000 is just budgeted as a capital transfer.
No, there's potential to use it for capital
Right,
projects, and that's kind of where we're going with.
Okay. So it's not explicitly intended to be used for capital projects. It's a way to potentially generate net asset increase that then could be.
That
Okay.
could be, yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yeah,
I just have a question about this chart that we have here. So 10 cents is $24,000 on your equation.
10 cents.
Yeah, on the
What page are
on
you
the
on?
water on the sorry, I should have said that better. I've been thinking about it for too long. The water rate, the future year water rate, the original was 628. The previous year was 618. What I saw on 75 or the yeah, if that's right. I think that's right. And then future the new one, the alternative is 638.
With
So
the net
10
asset increase.
Right. So how do you come up with that 24,000? It's 10 cents times what? I know the number, but I'm just curious what the mechanism for that number is.
So
That pull it into the Excel. That 10 cents would be from the
I know where the 10 cents is, but the number that you're using to multiply, which we know that number to make 24,000. What is that number?
the number times 10 cents.
Yeah.
Would be roughly, I mean, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth here, but we have the assumed calculation of the rate for the water, and that was estimated at 675 GPD. And you have to remember that's 10 cents per 1,000 gallons.
10 cents per 1,000 gallons.
Yes.
On an assumed 675.
Well, it's not
Gallons per
assumed.
day.
It's based off.
Oh, that's your trend.
Yeah, that's
So
where it's been trending.
675 trend on 1,000. 10 cents on 1,000 gallons.
Yes, it costs 10 cents
Based
per 1,000
on
gallons.
675 GPD.
Yep.
Okay. That was my. I
Yeah,
was
should've
I was
brought my
really
calculator.
curious how that number was generated.
Yeah.
And so does the percentage reflect the total of the rate or just the total of the rate increase?
That's the water rate increase.
$6 to 6.
Right, but the water rate increase that. Okay, so that would be off from the difference between 618 and 636. Because as that number goes up, the percentage should theoretically go down
So this
as the
is
value gets bigger.
the
If the
618 to 636. Clear
25.
okay,
All of these options here, this chart are clear 20.
right,
So going up 6%.
okay,
And in that top line of the second alternative,
3.18,
0.18%.
6.38. Okay, So the percentage is the actual physical increase, all from the new rate.
Yeah,
Existing
that
to-
water rate increase. It's a
Okay.
percentage year over year. Fiscal 24, fiscal 25.
Right.
So you can kind of see it.
Well, I was just using that as an example because the number looks lower, but it's actually less money because of the way that percentage is generated. Because the larger the increase, you're gonna have a lower percentage. If you take an increase of 40 cents, right,
Mhm.
and you add it to $7 now, that increase, the way you generated that percentage is gonna be less.
Yeah, if your
You know what I mean?
bottom number is higher,
Right.
if it's a $7 instead of 6.18, then that's correct. Yeah, you will have
Okay.
number there. I think the way to look at it, Ethan, is you see the 1.6% in the top line.
Yeah.
That caused a 10-cent increase
10
in the
cent,
water.
yeah. Then double.
And then
Little
basically
less.
doubling it is
Little
the
less, yeah.
3.18 exactly.
Okay.
But it's still now become a 20-cent increase in that specific
Okay. Based on
based on the current
675.
year rate, the 6.18 that
Okay.
we're starting with at a base.
I was just trying to understand it better because if I was just in the audience reading those numbers, then how do you know where that 24,000 comes from? But thank you for explaining.
Any other questions?
Probably better that I don't ask any questions at this point.
Okay.
I will just sum it up to say that to me it looks like you're trying to feed 10 people with something that should be for 8. You're trying to find money from what you have instead of determining what you need for money. As far as the capital question, I would just say that in the end we shouldn't be debating what we do with any overage that they save in an enterprise fund. It should automatically go towards your capital, towards your enterprise fund. That's pretty much it. I mean, can you clarify for me that you are not proposing to eliminate one of your full-time positions unless you don't need that full-time position?
My intent tonight here is not to eliminate any of the 4 full-time equivalents that we have now.
Okay. So you're just
Not-
hoping that if you don't fill that position, you would take that money and be able to direct that into capital? specifically?
At this point, I mean, we have, I would really like to hope that we can get a third in with Tyler and Fletcher. That would be a decent crew, and we can kind of piggyback with the help with our current contract that we have. If we do get that 4th position and the person is qualified, and they would be an asset to the department, I'm coming back here, Kendall, to request that of the board, that I be able to hire that 4th person that wouldn't be currently budgeted in this budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other board questions? Not, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public comment. Anyone in the room or online? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Again, we're on the potential action proposed fiscal year 25 water and sewer budget and rates. What's your pleasure?
I hope this is the right one. Make the motion to select board authorize staff to adjust the proposed fiscal year 2025 water sewer budget to reflect alternative 2 before the public hearing on the proposed budget.
Thank you, Dawn. Second.
I'll second that.
You, Andy. Any further discussion on the motion?
So just to be clear, what we're intending is that highlighted line, the red line, and have the words that we said adequately portrayed that that's what we want. Okay.
I believe so too.
Yeah, the one with the 1 full-time equivalent allowance with a 2.99% water rate increase and an anticipated $74,000 net asset increase. Is that?
I just want to make sure that we
Good question.
move the right thing.
Thank you. All right, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. And next we have the capital plan for fiscal 25 to fiscal 29.
Right, so this should answer some of the questions that you had during the operating portion here. I think we just dive right into the meat of it. We have a number of projects this year on the plan. I'm going to go down through each of these. Basically, some of them are water, some of them are sewer, and some kind of reside in both worlds, kind of a shared.
Where did you go to on this page mess we've got going?
Just, it'd be 102.
Oh, I didn't go. Okay, thank you. That's far enough. I couldn't find it. Thank you.
See, I actually went on and got the packet, and I wrote it on the corner of each one of my
That's so good.
my paper copy.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, let's jump in both feet. Some of our priority water projects that we have this year, if you look at page, would be 103. We have the town centerline project, which is currently gone through design and was bid for construction. We received bids. The project is currently in shutdown until July 1st, when the contractor can mobilize on site, and we'll start constructing that project, which consists of connecting the distribution system on the north side of 15 between Billy Butler Drive and Essex Way with a 10-inch PVC main. This has been a project that we've been trying to push for quite some time. Got hung up a little bit in right-of-way, but we're there. And this is definitely going to be the first step, infrastructure-wise, to helping us develop the 8090 Upper Main site. That is reflected out there, and we're showing for FY 25 $675,000 expense there. There is some costs associated with this project that is getting paid for under the current fiscal year's capital plan. Our friends, the Vermont Sand Hill water line. This intersection project, this project was generated from a V-Trans intersection project many years ago. I just confirmed last week that this project will not go until fiscal year 27. So we'll be looking to do some construction in calendar year 26 into 27 for this project. And for that, we may have a little bit of design engineering to put together our portion of the construction plans. That's why you see a $35,000 there, and then it's going to straddle the two fiscal years, 26 and 27, so you see 100 and 150 on either side of that. The Birchwood Manor Loop project, this is something that's a little farther out. This project addresses the need for a second feed into the Birchwood Manor development off of Sand Hill Road for water. Likely this will go to design in fiscal year 28. This is kind of a legacy item in there. I kind of left it in because I like the idea, but it's not identified on our capital project summary here. But this is the web-based payment portal that we presented to the board a few years back now. I think that was when Sarah was here. I think it's a good idea. I kept it in there just so we don't forget it. But it's something that may appear back on future plans moving forward.
Can I ask a question about that? How does the finance department feel about that? Would that make your job much, much easier?
I don't know. I guess I'd have to investigate the system myself. You know, our utility billing, our online functionality for that is pretty good right now. You know, occasionally we have cross payments with the city, but it's not too difficult to untangle. Steps to mitigate that. So I'd have to look at this particular.
I'm just curious because payments, that could be very handy for both the customers and the finance department. You know, it's a low priority, but
I left it on there because I really do think it has value.
yeah.
And also as part of, I mean, we looked at a couple of different suites of software that are out there and available to us. And a lot of it has a lot of interface with the users and how much they actually use at their address, whether it's water and or sewer. So consumption, you can look over trends throughout the year. And, you know, as it's calculated, a lot of these softwares will allow that there's little widgets that the customer can, you know, well, what if I do this or change this low flow to a low flow toilet? You know, what is it going to save me? And then we'll give them $1, you know. So I think it's a great opportunity, but I think it definitely needs some more investigation on the financial side, on finances side for the payment that would be going through this portal. It has to meet their needs as well.
Thank you.
Moving along to the water system leak monitoring. This essentially is a project that's going to span over 3 fiscal years. What this does is it's the installation of monitoring equipment at certain areas within our water distribution system to track and verify fluctuations in pressure within the system that could potentially be leaks within our system. This would be also coupled with them to be able to triangulate a certain area within our distribution system, and coupled with acoustic leak detection equipment can go out and actually find that physical leak. So it basically takes our whole system, there's a leak within it, where is it? Don't know. Triangulates it a little bit more within the system to a sub area within the distribution system where we can kind of, you know, direct the guys to go take a look and actually find the physical leak. So this is a 3-year project, and this piggybacks on all the acoustic leak survey work that we've done over the past 3 years. Kind of ashamed to do all that work and not try to implement anything further on monitoring, so you don't have to kind of repeat yourself in another 2-3 years to kind of redo all the work. Kind of a wasted effort. So we put this project in there, again, $50,000 for each fiscal year. The hydrant replacement line item here, believe it or not, $22,000 does not buy many hydrants. It's two. About it. And I know there was a question that came up. This is for public hydrants only, not private hydrants. We do not, can't say we do not, we do in a pinch, but we try to stay away from our private hydrants within our.
Do you have a way to enforce the private hydrant owners to maintain those hydrants for you?
Coming to you. Gonna be, yep. We need a, I have like an 80% draft of a hydrant use, private hydrant policy, maintenance policy. My personal belief, I think it's good practice that we have trained, qualified, licensed staff to repair and maintain all hydrants within the town of Essex. And with that said, that's private hydrants included. So there would be a fee for that, but that's something that has to come before you folks and approved so we can get that policy in place.
I think that's very important. Thank you.
Okay, this is one of the bigger projects we have on there. Fort Ethan Allen asset replacement. These numbers you see here, they're placeholders, if you will. This project, quite honestly, is probably full construction. All replacement of all distribution lines within Fort Ethan Allen would likely be on the order of close to $5 million. We have the initial preliminary engineering report done for this project, and likely would go out in three phases of construction, possibly 4 based off of funding available. This project is definitely a candidate for SRF loans through the state for construction. The phase 1 and phase 2, the engineering side of this, or step 1 and step 2, we're currently we'll be looking to move into step 2, which would be like the preliminary design of all 3 phases of this project. I think it's best we get some of these designs on the shelf and kind of place ourselves with the in the back of our heads that sometimes once a project is on the state priority list, we're not there. We usually our where we're at. Our town is not eligible for funding or for loan forgiveness through the SRF program. But as they go down the list of projects, they ask you, "Are you ready? Are you ready to go? Do you have design plans? Do you have construction plans? Are you bonded? Do you have a bond, a past bid bond?" If the answer is no, they move on to the next person on the list, and they keep going down until they hit somebody who has all the ducks in a row and all their paperwork in place, and then they're eligible for funding under loan forgiveness funding under the SRF program. But this project definitely we will be putting on the drinking water SRF priority list moving forward. We're going to continue to do that, and this project, as I said, would likely be bonded on a 20-year bond. So these big blips that we see of the 750, 800,000 would likely in the future be a bond payment, whatever that bond payment would be for on 20 years for $1.5 million water line project. So that kind of inflates the bottom line total expenditure on this plan. I just wanted you folks to be aware that essentially we're not accounting for that in this plan. We're just kind of giving dollar values of total cost of these projects here. Page 105, Creek Road. This would like to get out to design next fiscal year, 25. Creek Road is a small road, hill section in the Pinewood development. The road is in pretty bad shape physically, but the water line has seen a substantial number of breaks since my time here, mostly service breaks, a couple main breaks in my predecessor's time here. It's an AC water line, which they're more prone to breakage. And before I go and put any type of pavement down on this section of road, I want to replace the water line. So we have this for design in FY25 and would likely try to get this out to construction in 26. We're showing this around 250. It should be about 250, 300,000, I would estimate. Not a large line, but big enough. Moving on, priority projects for sewer. Pump station controls upgrade. We've been tackling all of our stations that are the dry well, wet well type, where we actually have to physically go down into our cans to go take care of issues, problems, clogs. This project has 2 more years We have 30,000 for both 25 and 26. And ironically, we have 2 more stations left to get completed. And then we will be finally finished. What this is doing is it's bringing a lot of our controls, necessary controls, up out of the can, so it limits the time that our crews have to go down inside the pump stations to take care of things. They can do most of it up above. Not saying that if there's a clogged pump, they don't have to go down in. They do, but any time above ground, out of the can, that they can get their work done in a safe manner is better in mind. So, number 2 for the sewer projects here was the Painesville Gravity Sewer Project. This is kind of a legacy project since I've been here. It, I believe previous boards have declined to go forth with this project due to lack of interest from the public. It's still on the capital plan. I have more design on this in 27. I think it's worthwhile for us to investigate sewering some of those areas in Painesville, specifically portions of Pioneer, Ira Allen, Stearns, Jackson Heights, and Pinecrest. As part of some of the most recent development out there, there was a new pump station put in off of Pinecrest for one of the congregate housing facilities that was just constructed. And as part of the requirement of that approval, we had a gravity structure put out by the road as close as we could and as deep as we possibly could, designed in to pick up as much of the surrounding area with gravity sewers. So the big part of it's done, the pump station and that deep sewer. Now it's getting some of these gravity lines down Pinecrest and other areas within Painesville. This project's a little farther out. Like I said, 27, we have 50,000 in there to update engineering plans. And then this would hopefully, based off of what type of feel that the residents within the community have for actually hooking on to the sewer, whether that's going to drive the project or not. But I do think it's warranted that we do keep these plans updated and keep our options open for the residents within. Chelsea Road. This is actually, this portion is the old portion of Chelsea Road, not the newer portion that's up closer to Old Stage. This is one of the older gravity sewer systems we have in the town of Essex. I think this line was put in the 50s, 60s. It's all clay tile in there, so it's older pipe. Some of it has settled. It wasn't bedded properly. We have one significant sag in that one section of that gravity line that our crews go out and maintain. We clean that religiously 3 or 4 times a year just to make sure that there's no blockage in through that area. But this project would be either conventionally or by other means, pipe bursting or directional drilling to get lines in there to replace those existing clay tile sewer lines within the Chelsea Road neighborhood. And I have design engineering for that at 50,000 out in 2028. And as a placeholder, we have 800,000 in 2029 for construction. And a project of that size would likely be a candidate for SRF loans, to bond for it and take it out over 20 years. So it's not a big impact to our funding that we currently have. I don't think this one is on the summary, but it's number 5 here on page 106, the 40th and Allen sewer allocation study. This, we have a meeting likely next week, if I can get a hold of them again. We've been back and forth playing phone tag. This policy, or this study, with the genesis of it is, I've seen my time here a significant amount of development within 40th and Allen on some of the older dorm buildings for St. Mike's and UVM. They're repurposing a lot of these older buildings as housing, both for Champlain Housing Trust and for market housing, apartments, condos. That said, I've seen the sewer flows dip when St. Mike's left the fort with all the residence halls, and I've seen them starting to edge back up as more development on the Colchester side of the fort takes place. And what this allocation study is going to do for us is provide us with an MOU between, which we would bring forth to both you folks here on the Essex Select Board and the Colchester Select Board, to provide us both communities direction and a maximum capacity allowed for sewer discharge into the 40th and Allen pump station, into our allocation we have in the Essex treatment plant, or the city treatment plant. So like I said, this is ongoing. I've seen a draft of their policy, read through it. I have a lot of comments. It's still in its infancy. And when we have more and have something a little more set in stone, we'll definitely bring it to you folks, and at least for its first initial reading, probably in a reading file, and then we'll coordinate with presenting it to Colchester as well.
Is there any opportunity, since you're currently under contract, to review the policies, for them to develop any kind of fee schedule costs? I mean, especially because you're involving another town.
Contract amendment?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. There's always opportunities for amendments and change orders.
I'm just thinking you do it once, it'd be easy to do it. We got to meet anyways, instead of coming back and saying, oh, by the way, we're going to raise our rates.
I haven't discussed it with them, our consultant, but I could see what his thoughts are on that. Yeah.
At least they could do just a quick look, if nothing else. So.
Yep.
Thank you.
Item 6 is the Lang Farm Town Center Pump Station Upgrade Project. And I'd like to find it on here. Here we go. This project kind of saw its genesis from the Lang Farm Pump Station nearing its capacity. We probably have, in its current condition with impellers and pumps, we have roughly 4 to 5 years left if build-out continues the way it's planned to in the town center. This does not include the 80 or 90 upper main portion. This is just town center and whatever the Essex experience may want to update or upgrade within their area as well. So that said, we've retained the services of Hamlin Engineering to do, number one, a capacity study on the Lang Farm Pump Station, but also to help us look at impacts with adding additional development in the town center, and how we could possibly mitigate some of those costs. And part of it was to redirect some of the sewer from the Lang Farm Pump Station into the gravity system in the city of Essex Junction, and then put in a new station in the town center that would accept all of the town center and flows from the Double E, and redirect that up into the existing force main on Essex Way into our system up here. That project is ongoing. Discussions with the city. They want to further analyze some of the impacts downstream from this redirection into their gravity system. We're working with Hamlin at the moment. They're doing a flow impact study on a couple sections of gravity lines within the city system to see what those are going to what's going to come of those impacts, and whether or not we mitigate those as part of any project that we do here in town. So this project is ongoing, and if it goes to construction, this would definitely likely be either portion of it fee-based, like collection of connection fees and whatnot within the town center could offset some of these costs, but also another candidate being as large of a project as it will be for SRF loan funding. Number 7 here on page 107 is the 40th and Allen Sewer Rehabilitation Project. That we're looking to kick off in 2026. This basically would be slip lining a lot of the gravity sewer lines throughout the fort. This project is scheduled to take place over 3 years. And project number 8 here identified as the Center Road Force Main project. We're currently working through design on this project. If you folks remember, we had a number of breaks on our sewer force main on Route 15 on Center Road. Cost us quite a bit of time and money to repairing them each time. What we intend to do is to put a new force main down Center Road and do a few modifications at the pump station as part of this project. Size of this project, again, this is on the Clean Water SRF priority list at the moment. I believe we're in step 2 engineering right now for this, so preliminary designs are being completed. And we're looking to go out for construction here in FY25. River Road Force Main Assessment. This project is utilizing some new technology out there. They use it quite a bit in the gas industry and in the water industry, but it's also made its way over into sewer. We want to take a look and find out and get an assessment done on the existing 12-inch force main on River Road from the Alderbrook Pump Station. We want to see what the integrity of the pipe is at the moment, any potential leaks, maybe identify any areas that we may need to address now. It's a pretty cool system. I can definitely provide you folks with some further information on how it works, how it operates, what they do, and when they're out there, I definitely will invite you to.
Will there be video?
No video. No video. It's pretty cool. They stick I don't know, it's about like this. And I watched it when they did one for the water district. It's a ball, and there's like a GPS monitor in there, and there's some sensing equipment that shoots sounding or beams at the inside of the pipe. So they stick it into the hydrant, and then they start flowing the hydrant, or they're flowing the water line, and it floats down the pipe, and it assesses the wall thickness, and if there's any differential in the thickness of the metal pipe, they'll know that there's either corrosion or potential for a break or something like that. So it's pretty cool technology.
Yeah, very cool.
Item number 10 here is the Susie Wilson Force Main Flow Meter Vault. This is something that is new to our plan. This will likely go to construction between 25 and 26 next summer. This will basically meter all of the sanitary sewer out of the Susie Wilson pump station. The Susie Wilson pump station is a city-owned pump station located within the town of Essex and receives 99.99% of all of its flows from the town of Essex. But it's city-owned and city-maintained. This is going to help us better account for all reported flows into the city. Right now, it's a combination of flow metering in the Fort, Gothier pump station, and then reading water meters and adding some II numbers to it to come up with a total flow to the village. This is definitely going to help us both account for all of our sewer going into the city and help the city bill us properly with that. And Don, this project is yours, the water and sewer rate and fee study. And we have that for FY 2025, $65,000. So this is definitely a project that we want to get going on. We know there's a need, and we'll definitely be keeping you folks in the loop with regards to what we find with our consultant and throughout the whole process. And page 109, lastly, new pump station bypass pump. Current pump is well over 25 years old. It's a pump we use quite often to help us bypass some of our sanitary sewer pump stations. Got quite a workout last summer, bypass pumping a storm pond for a month, but it did its job, held up well. This would be for the purchase of a new pump for the department next fiscal year at the cost of around $50,000. Kind of wrap it up, a bit long-winded, but in FY, currently right now, we have roughly $833,500 in designated future capital expenses and $4,020,252 in unrestricted assets. Net assets. Yeah, I'm trying to use the to help fund some of these projects on this list. And like I said, it's going to be a combination of both loans, bonding, and money that we have in the department now.
Questions from the board? Kendall?
I know that Dan proposed a project in the fund to buy down the fund. You're using the surplus to do a lot of these projects. In the plan, have you looked ahead to see how to keep that, to not get too low with all the projects coming up?
Yeah, I think, we haven't done anything beyond this 5-year. But, we're definitely making a heavy investment with this 5-year capital plan. So there will need to be some evaluation of being able to recoup and rebuild net assets after such extensive work. But at this point, it's very early on in a lot of these projects. But there will be effects in future rates to help mitigate along with and the other methods of
Okay, and I would just bring that up because I'm concerned when you have projects that are going like this and the fund's going like that, it's hard to get the project are going to keep going like this, and it's hard to get that to go back up. Even though it's 5 to 8 years out, it's not going to be any easier to find the money then than it is now. So that goes along with the whole discussion that we've had with capital. Thank you.
Other questions?
A couple of times in the past, we've seen that the need for a bond vote to have a bond approved in order to qualify for a grant that we hope, then we hope we don't need the bond or kind of thing? Or is that, am I understanding that right? And are we at that point? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out if we're gonna, because it keeps saying November.
We will likely have a November bond item for the Center Road Force Main project. There are 3 steps in that, throughout the SRF process in or developing or using state money. Step 1 and 2 covers your preliminary engineering and your engineering costs, and you don't need a bond vote to go after and enter into agreements for those projects or for those steps. Step 3, construction, you need a approved bond vote to go forth with the construction project. So, as I said earlier, being on the priority list and getting projects through step 1 and 2 as much as we can, or as many as we can, puts those, and getting them on the priority list, whether it be clean water or drinking water list, getting them on the list and having those bonds ready, have an approved bond and those design ready, puts us in a better position to when they come knocking, if funding is available for loan forgiveness, we can go forth with those projects and or build them if we want to with a lower interest rate anyway. I think it's the bond half bond bank, it's up 2%.
Yeah, maybe a little closer.
Yeah. So we will definitely be going for a bond issue.
This coming November, okay.
Yep. For the Center Road Force Main.
All right.
Your questions from the board?
Just one comment on what you see in the packet. Aaron ran through all the projects that are there. The packet, or the summary of the capital project list that's included with that item is missing. Susie Wilson Road Force Main actually appeared earlier in your packet as part of the water sewer budget. So if you do approve it tonight, that would be capital water sewer. Aware of what you're going to vote.
With no other board comment, I'll open it up to public comment. Anyone in the room or online care to make a comment about the water and sewer capital plan? Seeing none, bring it back to the select board.
I would just note that I read in here somewhere that you are including asking for those congressional allocations that they give from the senators. Has Essex ever done that? Asked for one? I don't believe you have.
Not to my knowledge. No.
I never used to think that a town such as Essex could qualify. But looking at some of the awards that have been given out by the senators, I think it's well worth including as any of these big projects that impact a lot of people. It's worth asking. It's definitely worth submitting that to both of our senators.
Anyone be interested in making a motion?
Sure, just to be clear that we're, okay. I move that the select board approve the water and sewer capital plan for FY 2025 to FY 2029 as presented.
With the listing of the Wilson Road.
With the listing of the Susie Wilson Road Forest Main project.
Yes.
Thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Everyone clear on the motion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Consider approval to warn a public hearing for fiscal year 2025 water and sewer budget.
I make the motion that the select board authorize staff to warn a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2025 water and sewer budget for May 20th, 2024.
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Don. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have some significant concerns based on what some other towns have found when they have done these. charitable contributions and stuff.
We're on the public hearing for fiscal year
Sorry,
water sewer. That's okay.
sorry.
I don't know.
I
that.
made the motion, he
Second.
seconded it.
Right, I
We're good.
was trying to center myself.
Sorry. I got that kind
Okay,
of face,
so
huh?
motion is made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the public hearing motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Can
Now,
I, excuse me,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, can I ask the town manager if we could shut the AC off? It's blowing down my neck over here, my face or
I
something.
turned the heat up, so.
I know you did, but I've got air conditioning running here.
thank you.
Am I the?
No, you're not.
No, I
Yes,
think,
Dave.
oh, yeah.
We
I'm
added
sorry.
that in.
Yeah,
for
it's
you.
not even the next one. Now we're on to the public
truck
works truck
stuff.
25. Dan, you're done. Aaron, you're not.
Truck 25 and car 21.
Oh, this wasn't car 54, so we're good. Oh my God. that was way
Apologies.
back.
And I even had a nifty little arrow to keep me on track, and I failed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, consider approval of purchase of Public Works Truck 25, amendment to Car 21 replacement schedule, previously on the consent agenda. It is now item 6H. on our
Yes.
items.
Public Works Department had 3 vehicles identified for replacement on our equipment replacement schedule, approved by the Select Board. Truck 104 was ordered at the beginning of this year, and we probably won't see that truck until late fall, hopefully before snow flies. The other 2 vehicles were Car 21, which was a Public Works admin vehicle, and Truck 25, which is our 1-ton single cab plow truck with sander that we kind of use to get in and out of some of the buildings and does some of our cul-de-sac work. We did go out for and solicit quotes for these vehicles. We did get the numbers for Car 21, which came in on budget, but when we started getting in numbers back on Truck 25, we saw it was substantially over what we had had in the capital plan. We did get numbers back from Key Chevrolet, which was the low bid for the cab and chassis for the 1-ton for Truck 25. And we did get the plow and sand attachments from another manufacturer. The manufacturer for the plow and sand equipment for Truck 25, Iroquois manufacturing was lower, but they didn't provide what was requested in the performance spec. So we had to go with the Jana truck to help us out there. So with that said, what we're looking to do is prioritize which vehicle we go with, knowing that we don't have the funds planned or allocated within our equipment replacement plan. So we're looking to hold off on the purchase of our admin vehicle, Car 21, which we have down for $35,000, and use that $35,000 with what we have budgeted for Truck 25 to offset the total cost of the Truck 25, which we're going to see a total price tag of $101,775. So our recommendation would be Public Works recommends purchasing Truck 25 from Key Chevrolet for $54,696 for the cab and chassis, and go with the Jana truck for the salter, sander, and plow attachments for $47,079. Take any questions, comments?
Questions from the board?
Well, I mostly wanted to bring this out to point out so that everybody knows how expensive these new vehicles are. To retrofit it up to be a plow truck is almost as expensive as the cost itself of the vehicle, which is substantially more than you had planned on spending. So I mean, there's not really any easy answer. They've gone out and you're not even going to have it retrofit in Vermont. You're going to have it done in another state. So they're trying to cut costs the best they can, but these are it's significantly more expensive. And also, it prevents replacing a vehicle that's on the schedule for the administration vehicle, which is going to put it into next year's schedule and affect that schedule. I assume you have vehicles next year to replace. So I just wanted to talk if there was any option. What kind of shape is car 21 in? Is there any option to do a short-term lease or something to stay on track?
This is a Ford Explorer. It was Dennis's old admin vehicle. Dan Gregoire in our office currently uses it quite a bit to go to site visits. I use it time and again to go here and there or when needed. So it's available for admin to utilize. That said, it has a couple more years of life in it. It did pass inspection. They didn't find any major flaws with the mechanicals or the underbody, any corrosion or anything like that. That was substantial enough where it wouldn't pass inspection. So I not being a mechanic myself, I can definitely say that it, and having it looked at a mechanic, it does have another couple years of life in it to get us through this.
Are you concerned that this will be a common occurrence with the rest of the vehicles coming up? The new dump trucks or loaders or basically any vehicle? I mean, this really kind of throws your whole...
A bit, yes. I think for the most part, most of those numbers that we had in that plan, equipment replacement plan, reflect what we saw at that moment in time, a snapshot in time. I know one of the reasons why the plow and sand attachments were a bit more, they're going with a hydraulic-based sander. A lot of them are electric, and they just don't have the spin out the sand needed, especially if it's wet or damp. This piece of equipment will be a better tool to maintain our roads in the winter moving forward, but I think it's the best option. Yeah, there's going to be some impacts with our plan, but that's something that we have to call an audible and regroup and adjust it moving forward next year.
Any further questions? Ethan?
I got a couple. I was gonna leave you alone, but Kendall pulled it into the business thing, so
I'll
now
blame it on Kendall.
Now I gotta say it.
Blame it on Kendall.
But no, really, I just have a couple quick comments and then like one question or two. But 54,000 is, I think, very reasonable for a 1-ton pickup truck these days. So we should raise our expectations of what they're gonna cost, because that's very reasonable. But my question is, I don't know if it's a policy, but we typically get three bids. I know one of them didn't respond, but on the other two, the one that's killing me here is, did we call Viking Surveys or did we just forget about them?
I don't believe. I'll have to check with Dan Roberge, but I don't believe that they had the particular unit we were looking for. It didn't meet the performance spec, but I can definitely.
Okay, I was just curious
Yeah.
if we were. I don't know that it was always. That is even a policy that we always got 3. I just remember it being a practice in my time.
Listen,
Yeah.
if we don't get a response,
Yeah, you don't get a response. Yeah. Okay, and then my last question for you is, are we trading the truck in, or are we keeping the truck? Or just
25.
auction it.
Yeah, we'll likely keep the truck. We'll
Keep it.
we'll get money for that off that 101,000. So that's
As a trade in.
yeah.
Okay. I didn't see that part in there. I was gonna leave you alone. I swear.
It's okay. It's okay.
But those are my questions. So
Kendall
thank
made you do it. Ethan.
Thank you. He did. He pulled it into he made it so I could talk about it.
Yeah, we will get an appraisal on that vehicle, and it would be
Trade in.
yeah,
Okay.
it would be used to offset some of those costs.
Awesome.
Other questions from the board? Are there any questions, comments from public online in the room?
Will Dodge has his hand up.
Will?
Yeah, I have a question about the admin vehicle. Have you looked into an electric truck for that? And specifically using the combination of the incentives from GMP, the federal incentive, plus the MERP, which is the Municipal Energy Resilience Program, to potentially reduce the cost of what that would entail?
Both vehicles for Car 21, we spec'd out a hybrid vehicle. So we went to with both the Toyota and the Ford. Chevy didn't really offer us any solutions, so those were the only two that would give us a number. I have not investigated going full electric. I know the MERP grant we do have currently. I believe Greg or Marguerite could maybe speak to that a little clearer, but I think they're going to utilize that in conjunction with the village. So it wouldn't have been just, or the city, excuse me, it wouldn't have been just, this is just for specifically a town public works admin vehicle.
And have you factored in what the cost would be over the long term of not paying for gasoline and using electric? In other words, the fuel costs.
Honestly, no, I won't, no. I decided to take a step into the realm of trying to be a little bit more aware of environmental impacts, and we decided the route would be to enter safely into this with a hybrid vehicle.
Yeah, what I would just say about that is that, you know, it's the environment part is one thing, the cost part is the other. That the town is going to save over the long term if we start to invest in electric vehicles. And this was something that we heard again and again and again at these town planning meetings that we did last year. And there's actually an action item in the town plan to be looking at electric vehicle more closely on the replacement front. So I just hope that that does become much more of a concern over time, or much more of a process point over time here. I understand that the budget is what the budget is, but we also have a new town plan that makes this a point of emphasis.
So I think, given that you said you haven't investigated electric at this point,
No.
I don't think that moving forward with this motion would preclude going back looking at electric, and, you know, if it dollars work out, come back with another plan for replacement if that's
For the admin.
doable. Yeah.
Yep, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Seeing no other public comment, bring it back to the board. Would someone care to make a motion?
Make the motion, the select board approves Public Works recommendation of the purchase of truck 25 from Key Chevrolet for $54,696, and the plow and sanding equipment from Dejana Truck for $47,079, for a total replacement cost for the truck 25 of $101,775, and adjust the vehicle equipment replacement plan for the Public Works to purchase car 21 in future year 2027.
Ethan, is there a second? Thanks, Kendall. Everybody clear on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0, which then brings us to fiscal year 25, fiscal year 26 retainer contracts for small projects and emergency repairs.
So, the end of last year, our previous retainer contract ran out. So we went out to bid again this year for retainer contracts for heavy construction to help Public Works during emergency responses and other work events that our highway crews and our water sewer crews can't get to. In the memo here, you can see attached, we had 5 people submit bids, or 5 contractors submit bids. 2 were rejected for errors in their bid. And the other 3, Engineers Construction, Omega Excavation, and J. Hutchins Inc., provided clean bids, with engineers being the overall lowest bid at $668, and Omega Excavation second lowest at $680. I was made aware of a discrepancy in the bid and what we have down here in our recommendation. If you, and I don't have the page number, I apologize, of your packet. But in our bid, we stated that the town will award a retainer contract to the 3 lowest bidders, and the selected contractors will sign a 2-year agreement with the town of Essex. And in the recommendation, we're only stating to sign contracts with Engineers Construction and Omega. I think the change there should be made to reflect what we stated in our bid, and have all 3 engineers, Omega and J. Hutchins, all offered contracts for retainer with the town. Recommendation is to authorize the town manager to sign the heavy construction retainer contracts with all 3 contractors for site development, excavation, for emergency response and other heavy construction activities that Public Works can't get to.
Any questions?
Well, I brought this up because I wanted to make sure that there was a provision, even with the retainer contract that you have, to use local contractors or slightly smaller contractors for some of the jobs that might fall under here.
There is that option. The retainer contracts are more for, in my personal opinion, they saved us this past winter a couple of water breaks. For emergency purposes, I want to be able to get on the phone with somebody, call them, and they're under contract to come and repair our water. Some of the scale of the projects, I think, is what you're alluding to, Kendall. Some of the other projects, we can still go about it the same way we do. If it's under 40,000, we solicit 3 quotes. Does it have to be any of these contractors on retainer? It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
I see the retainer system that we do have more as emergency response. And I want the contractors that we have on retainer to have the depth bench to provide us with whatever type of crew we need, whether it be someone who's experienced with fixing water breaks or fixing sewer breaks or fixing a huge washout or anything all the above. So it doesn't preclude that just because we have these 3 contractors under retainer that we're only going to use them for any of the work throughout the
That was my main concern, because I looked at the contract bid tabulation and I noticed even between the 3, there's a difference between something like a dump truck and a loader hiring it. So I just wasn't sure you had the opportunity where if you just needed to hire a 14-yard dump truck and a driver, you could just hire somebody to do that. You didn't have to use one of these at the price. So,
and if they're submitting a bid and they want to use a sub, provide what the sub would charge for them and whatever your overhead and profit is on it. Leaving it blank is not an option for this bid anyways.
right. That was all. Thank you.
Any other board questions?
I just think that's good planning.
Yes, thank you. Any questions from the public? Questions, comments in the room, online?
See any hands?
Screen. All right, bringing it back to the board.
I make the motion that the select board authorize the town manager to sign heavy construction retainer contracts with both Omega Excavation and Site Development and engineers.
All 3.
Oh, all 3.
Yep.
I make the motion that the select board authorize the town manager to sign.
Did you get?
Go ahead.
heavy construction retainer contracts with Omega Excavation and Site Development, Engineers Construction Incorporation, and Jeff J. Hutchins Incorporated.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andy. Final discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. And I think this concludes our evening with Aaron.
Great.
You can stay if you want.
Yeah, you almost made the whole day.
I think I'm okay. I'm gonna go home.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Now, next up, consider approval of human services funding recommendations for fiscal 24, focus areas for fiscal 25. Hi, Tammy.
Hi. Sit here. Aaron's got the seat warm. He's been here a while. I'm here as I am every year. I facilitate the review of our applications for human services funding. This is the first year since I've been doing this that I didn't actually do the review. I just gathered the applications and answered questions and put them together, and we have a couple of new review team members this year. So it was a little bit interesting to do it that way. This year we had $154,012 in FY24 budget funding that was approved last year. We received 24 applications, which is about right. Last year we had 28 applications, so it's just about where we normally are. We had $74,163 we had to shave off of that, the budget requests, or I should say the funding requests that we received. The committee ranked and scored all of the applications and met, and they have come up with what's in attachment A in your packet as far as what they are recommending for consideration to the select board to look at. As far as the select board has always been able to, these are just recommendations. This is based on their scoring and review of these applications. You're welcome to accept any and all, take some, not at all, reject it. That's why we're here kind of early, so that if we have to work with this some more, we have some time before the fiscal year ends to be able to come up with some numbers that you're okay with. So the second part of this piece is just a recommendation by the committee to continue to use the same focus areas as we did last year. That's actually part of the policy, that the recommendation, or if there's any amendments, recommendations for amendments. A lot of the focus areas are based on the UVM Community Health Needs Assessment, which comes out every 2 years. And the last one was done in 2022, so I would expect that there will probably be a new one this summer that we can look at. Based on that last one, though, and as well as outreach that we did at the school with school officials, their two main pieces to concentrate on, or recommendations for us to concentrate on for focus areas, were equity work and literacy in math and student support for social and emotional learning. And then the UVM, based on that needs assessment, we had added last year the diversity and inclusion. I think we did a couple of amendments to the wording, and we also added workforce development to our focus areas. So the committee has opted to recommend the same focus areas.
Questions, comments from the board? Kendall?
To start again, I have mentioned my concerns to the town manager. A number of towns have found that the select board doesn't actually have the authority to approve certain charitable donations. I don't know enough about it to specify it through here, but I am uncertain that we're meeting all the criteria that we need to be able to do it.
Or I don't know if you, Greg, I don't know what year there was a vote at
Right.
town meeting
It was in the 1980s, and the town voted to do that. So we are still trying to get a final legal opinion. We think, having looked into it a little bit, the difference is that Essex has voted to do it this way, whereas the other towns we've heard about, or that I'm aware of at least, never had that formal town meeting vote to assign 1% of their operating budget to the Health and Human Services. I think that's the difference, that Essex has done that. Absolutely want to get confirmation of that before we go into your 26 budget planning, because fiscal year 25 budget has already been approved with the there. So we do want to try to confirm that we're doing it.
Yeah.
We're pretty confident that we are.
Yeah, it's in my limited knowledge of it, the confusion comes as to what exactly the select board has the authority to approve, even though it's been approved once by the people. So I don't know enough about the detail of it.
I might assert, though, that it is approved every year because it's approved with the budget. The budget lists this specific line item in there and is approved every year.
And we're just authorizing the dispersal of that money. Like we're authorizing Aaron to buy a truck, you're authorizing the dispersal of the money to go to these different.
Yeah, again, I'm uncertain.
Ethan?
I'm gonna give my yearly spiel here that I do personally work with Ant Dots only with one money related transaction, and it's a state approved grant where they have to purchase from a local farm. It's state money. It's $1,000, and I donate a large majority of my select board contributions back to Ant Dots. I also donate a ton of meat and all these other things, but none of the money, this is public record from the state and from my farm that I always say it every year, but it's the state money. It has nothing to do with Essex, and if anybody's uncomfortable, I will gladly recuse myself from the vote, but I say it every year. So
Do you feel as though you have a conflict?
nope.
Okay.
I just throw it out there because it
Yep.
it is public knowledge.
Yep, appreciate that. Any other board questions, comments? Seeing none, I will turn it over to public comment. Questions? Don't see any hands online. Don't see any hands up in the room. Bringing it back to the board.
I can't make the motion because I'm on the committee.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
I can make the motion. I move that the select board approve contributions to the human services agencies as presented.
Thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
They're both uncomfortable seconding it, so I'll second it.
Thank you, Kendall. Any final discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And there are no abstentions because Ethan said he did not have a conflict. Motion carries 5-0.
There's a second motion, though?
Focus
For the
areas.
focus areas?
Yes, please.
Yep.
I move that the select board approve the proposed focus areas for the FY25 funding cycle.
Thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any discussion on the funding areas? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Right, Tammy, thank you.
And I just want to publicly acknowledge Tammy's hard work on this, even though she didn't consider herself an active member. She did more work, I think, than the rest of us. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to the whole selection committee.
Well,
Who was involved in that too?
she kept us going, though.
Marguerite and some others.
She kept us going.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of work by the big committee members. There's a thick packet every year. It's
Yeah.
years around 300 pages. So, yeah, definitely have to commend them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
Next up, we're talking about a copier lease. I think we have Rob online.
Hello. Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. So our copier lease has expired in December of 2023. We have reached out to 2 other copier companies besides the one that was supplying us with our current service to get quotes. The recommendation is that we go with SimQuest. Their quote came in at the lowest. Aside from that, they're part of the state awarded contracts, but they also are offering us a lower bid than even the states required, whatever their agreed upon fees are. So not sure how much more. Do you want me to go into this or? Yes. Yeah. The equipment depreciates fairly quickly. The cost we had historically before it was kind of at the beginning of my time, there were copiers that we were purchasing. The cost of that is considerably more in the long term.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Is there any cost to switching out the machinery that we have and getting the new ones with a different company?
It's built into that figure, so it's bundled into their. I mean, there isn't a cost. There isn't like an onboarding cost, if that's what you're asking. It's part of just the overall cost to implement and bring in and remove our old equipment and send it back to what would be national if we go with SimQuest.
Quest will cover all that. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Welcome.
And it's compatible to what you have now?
Yeah. And in fact, some of the software, one of the pieces of software that we use for security purposes, we're using it with National, and SimQuest offers the same software, so the conversion will be considerably easier.
Thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Rob, one question. Does the contract include, once a machine is removed, wiping or punching of the hard drive? Understanding that,
Yes.
These do hold data.
Yes.
Thank you. Final questions?
You're welcome.
Any comment from any members of the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the
I
select
make
board.
the motion that the select board authorize the town manager to execute a 60-month contract with SimQuest.
Second.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Andy. Final discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
No, Catherine wants to talk numbers
Next up.
late at night.
Consider amending development fee schedule for use permits for not-for-profit organizations.
Right. Well, my numbers are pretty small,
Okay.
so hopefully it's not that hard. So thank you for having me this evening. As you know, community development has many different permits and schedules and different forms that people have to various times come and apply for. And there's a particular fee called a use permit, or a permit called a use permit. And we have found that a handful of the people who come in, or the groups that come in, are not-for-profit organizations. And the fee is $150 with a $15 recording fee. And we feel that waiving the fee for the not-for-profits seems like a fair thing. So in most cases, we have seen the not-for-profits are fundraising. They're doing some sort of community event. So they themselves are not pocketing any money from this event. So they're just trying to serve the community in some different way. So since January of 2022, 60 permits were issued for uses, and 11 of those permits were non-for-profits. So the recommendation from staff is that the select board would amend the development permit fee or schedule, I'm sorry, and waive the fee for the non-for-profits for the use fee. So there, I had attached the development fee schedule just so you could see what I was talking about. And so really tonight it would be to accept what is in red and underlined. So essentially what I just said, that a not-for-profit would not be required to pay that $150. They would need to, or recommending that they would pay the recording fee of $15, which is a requirement for any permit and needs to be filed in the land records. We also, this is not on the fee schedule, but would recommend that staff would make sure or verify that they are actually a non-for-profit, and so just verifying their status as a non-for-profit. Yeah, and that does not need to go on the fee schedule, but it would be a practice that we would have just to assure that we're not waiving fees for those that don't have that status.
Thank you. Questions?
Well, that was my question is, do you have a definition of not-for-profit?
Not per se, like in here, but there's, you know, the with the proof that we would have, I think it's a 403 B, is that what it is, or C?
501.
501.
501.
Okay.
501c3.
Sorry, I should have just said I don't remember my numbers. It's 3 and a letter.
501c3.
So I do think they're different ones, though, maybe, other than just the
It's just
501.
that if somebody walked in and said, this is not for profit, we're doing it as a fundraiser,
Yeah,
but you've got no knowledge of this group, I mean.
right. I think we would want to see some sort of proof, so
Okay.
they should have that status.
Okay.
I would say.
Yeah, they'd have to have a letter, an IRS letter that has their.
That's what I thought,
their- their
But that, does that need to
501c3
be in
number
print
and-
somewhere for them to?
It says with proof of not-for-profit status.
All right, where did I miss, all right, I did read it, I didn't see that, okay, thank you.
It's on the attachment of the proposed
Any other questions?
So you're keeping the $100 CO fee?
Well, the CO fee generally is for a change of use, a commercial change of use. So we would keep that, yes. So we don't really see that for these, you know, whether it be a parade or some fun run. We don't charge that CO fee.
I would I assume that the $150 was based in part on staff time and effort to do the project. So maybe I might suggest that we reduce the fee significantly, potentially, but still have a fee since there is a cost associated with it.
We did consider that, and I think that could be fair. Either way.
Just something to think about.
I was not around when the fee schedule was amended. It wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, it was
maybe 2 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago.
June 12th,
3 or 4.
2021.
So I don't know the discussion that went into you know, I think all the fees went up, or I know they all went up.
I'm all for it. I think, especially the nonprofits, but just in general of community events that promote community building and donating to causes, and I think it's a good thing. And just out of curiosity, but like the fun run at the school, do they have to get a permit?
They do.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Any, especially if you have something that's on a road. So we
Right.
just want to make sure
Or
that
extra
police and,
traffic.
safety purposes, it's reviewed and our safety folks are.
There were 11, so that's what, $1,650 if my math is correct. Any other questions or comments?
If you waive this fee for nonprofits, are there any other fees that a potential nonprofit could ask to be waived as well? Just a question.
Not with this.
Not per se.
So there, you know, if a not-for-profit was doing construction of a new building, they would still be required to pay. So it was really just this use permit. So it would be for events, essentially.
Any other questions or comments? Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? Ken?
Ken Signorello. So I definitely support the idea of having a differential fee. I think that's the appropriate way to go. You know, when you give away something for nothing, then the question, of course, is what's it worth? So I'm thinking that a small token fee would make good sense, even if it's $25. It's something, and so there's some value. That's one thing. On the proof area, you know, every not-for-profit organization has to file a 990 tax IRS form, so that would serve as proof as well.
Thanks, Ken. Any further discussion, or would someone like to make a motion?
Where is it?
I got it. Make the motion that the select board amend the development fee schedule by eliminating the use permit fee while retaining the $15 recording fee for not-for-profit organizations.
Thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Final discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-1. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Our last item, absent a potential executive, discussion about select board relationship with volunteer boards, commissions, and committees. Back to, unless you're ready to.
Sure. So this is just a topic. It's come up, I guess, sort of in non-specific terms in the past few weeks and months. What type of relationship the board wants to have with its volunteer boards and commissions. Few items that for potential topics of discussion tonight, but by no means is this the limit. What goals should the select board, or what role should the select board have in setting goals, missions for those boards and committees? Officio members have come and gone over the years to different boards and committees. What should it look like? Going to select board members attending meetings of other boards and committees. Does that continue? Are there parameters around that? And another question was, getting input from staff representatives or board and committee chairs as you process. Timely for the next. So those are just some things that have come up recently. But by all means, there might be other topics for conversation, but important to discuss.
Comments or questions?
Well, I have wondered about select board members attending other board meetings. That doesn't tend to be disruptive or influential. Just question. I've wanted to go to some, but wasn't sure it was appropriate.
If you're just observing on Zoom or in the room, why would that?
Oh.
I'm sorry, I still have this separation issue between being a select board member and a taxpayer and a real person.
Yeah.
I just think as a person that pays taxes and is a real person,
So,
you've got to be able to observe a meeting that you're interested in.
right. Or involved in.
All right, like you came and testified.
Right.
Kendall, so
Yeah.
we made a ruling where you couldn't be part of it. You could have gone to do
I did.
Yeah,
I did
I mean,
the same thing over when they were calling testimony from the farmer quoted in a plan that was never actually talked to, and I was the farmer. But so that's raises a good point. I mean, if there's a rule, and you want to build a garage, you gotta go in front of the planning commission. Are you allowed to go in front of the planning commission?
I mean,
You have to wait till you're done serving the select board to build your garage.
Well, like he says, it's undefined. So it's like, I know there are people that figure that any board member that goes to anything influences the board because they're the member of the select board. And then there's other folks that are like, well, exactly. You need to know what's going on, and the way you do that is you tune into all the meetings. So it's not defined.
I mean, I personally watch the planning committee because I would like to know what's being built and planned in the town of Essex. Nothing to do with my role here. I just want to know what's moving in near me or, you know, in other parts of the town. And I watched the cab because I just wanted to see, it's a whole new commission, whatever they are. And I just like to see where they're going with it.
Yeah, we got, you know, we're bound to the.
But I don't talk on
EDC.
them. I just watch it on the Zoom thing. So.
We've gone and listened to the EDC before.
Right, and we were invited though to that.
Yeah,
We were
that's
invited
right,
to that.
That's right.
Kendall,
We
you
didn't
know,
go uninvited.
I thought
They
we were
invited
invited.
us.
We were invited. weren't we?
Professionally, you know, I work for the state, and like when I went and testified in front of House Gov Ops on behalf of the select board, making a statement and making it very clear if you're going to speak. While I'm here speaking on behalf of, you know, the town of Essex, I'm also wear this other hat, but I'm here solely in my capacity as X. Sometimes just naming it is enough to, you know, just make your intentions clear, at least from my professional experience and my experience being on the select board and serving on the ZBA as well.
To say that or not to say that?
To say it, if you're going to speak.
Right.
I've definitely lurked in meetings just to listen, learn, know what's going on. But if I were to speak, just making that clear, I'm here of my own, not in an official capacity.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to leave this discussion mostly for you, but I do want to weigh in. Kendall, I know you've been to some planning commission meetings because you're in a butter to a project. Your select board hat is pretty much always on, but I think if you have a directly impacted, if you're trying to build a garage, then yes,
Right.
you are a resident. I think Tracy has good advice and speak up and say, I'm here as a resident, not as a select board member. But you don't give up your legal rights to your property. That's those.
But if you show up to the planning commission meeting where they're trying to set policy and you're making comments, you know, that's a little bit different.
Well, you wouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
No, I know. I'm just,
Yeah.
you know, their public comment. They're doing policy changes. Their public comment. You make a comment
Right.
that could be not a good thing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? 'Cause we're gonna
Yeah.
be the ones to decide on.
Right. There
I don't think there's any cases of any of that. Like, only ones I've ever been to is the EDC, the planning commission, and then I listened in on a couple energy committee meetings just because I'm curious and.
I
what
think I
happens
think there's
there,
a big difference between listening to learn as opposed to weighing in and trying to sway the discussion and the outcome of something that, you know, we may come to us for another decision. Andy?
Yeah, and also I think we need to make sure we don't discourage our committee members by making them feel like they're being supervised or directed, you know, from the back of the room or whatever. And I'm not saying anybody's done that. I'm just saying, but it's you know, historically, you know, I've been on the board for 10 years, and this comes up now and then. Is how do you participate in the community without, in a way that you don't appear to be having undue influence on how things move forward. And so, yeah, absolutely, if you've got a building project you're working on, but don't say, hey, I'm on the select board.
Well, no.
Do it this way. No,
Right.
yeah, I know that. I know that. Nobody's gonna do that. But it's just, yeah, it's from what folks are saying. I think you'll understand that it's not. Yeah, need to let the committees do what they want to do. If they have issues, they should come to us, or the chair or the staff member should come to, you know, through Greg to us or whatever. Just that's my thought.
So does that roll into the select board role in setting goals and missions?
I think aren't the goals and missions for boards and committees, aren't those set upon formation by the select board?
Missions, yes, and I think that's an interesting one. So one of the things I've actually been talking to Tammy about is she, on the board committees, is making sure that each board and committee and commission has a mission. Ones that don't come to you and propose something, yes, because the select board signs off on creation of the boards and committees. I think it's a reasonable expectation that sign off, weigh in on what the board and committee. The goals, Tracy, it's a good question. Maybe that's not the best wording in there. You know, goals falling under the mission of the board is here to accomplish X, Y, and Z. Big picture. Sure, I think that falls under the mission number. Board and committee mission comes and says fiscal year 25, we want to work on X, Y, and Z. We're going to have some part of our process and quarterly process with the boards and committees, have them present you that information working on. That's a different level of how much influence do you want to have on that. You're having your own work session in a couple days. I think by your town some direction about what's important to you. That will be relayed to department heads, to staff, to the staff reps, to these boards and committees. Not enough, or boards and committees run everything by you and say yes, no. Your point of how much influence do you want to weigh in? How much freedom do you want to give? Question. That's what I meant.
And I look at the mission is kind of overarching goals. Those are the destination. From my own perspective, the committee should figure out what roads they take to get there.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, what's on their work plan to meet those higher level goals.
But they should also certainly feel comfortable coming to us to ask our help if they want it.
Absolutely.
If it's okay, we're conflicted, we don't know which one of these goals to go with, give us some guidance. They certainly ask for that. I think we shouldn't be in the room saying, well, I think this is the way to do it, while they're putting their plans together.
Any other input or discussion on this conversation?
So can I still watch planning and tab or not? I want to know so I don't break any rules.
I don't think we can tell you you can't attend a public meeting.
Well, I don't want. I mean, if we're discussing this, I
Well,
keep screwing. I mean, I keep screwing this up.
that-
I don't want to keep.
I
doing
think
this.
there's still a key conversation that we haven't had yet is the last bullet point, and because that was one that I had asked about.
Oh.
But
But I just want to comment on what Don was asking about there. I think we all have to use our own discretion as to how much interaction we have with these committees when we attend. If you're attending, you're just listening, or you're watching,
Yeah.
I think that's completely safe to do.
Okay. Sometimes I just forget them. I
Yeah,
forgot the
yeah.
last one. I didn't even.
Yeah, I mean, that's my opinion, but others could have other opinions. But
No, like I said,
I think we all have to use our own discretion and do your best to avoid anything that appears to be a conflict or an abuse of power or anything like that.
It's kind of like the conflict of interest, right? You have to
No,
self-identify
right.
and, recognize your own interests and what influence you're having.
But no more than 2 members could do that at the same time, right? Otherwise, we'd have to
Since
let.
Technically, we
It'd
can't
be a
all be
joint
present.
meeting.
Well, no more than 2 of us can be present at any one time when there are discussions about town business, and since
So
pretty
that's-
much
so the
everything
committees-
falls within the
yeah, it'd technically be a joint
Yeah.
meeting at that point. Unwarned joint meeting, you'd probably have to stop.
right. But I think at one point, this was run into before. Well, I'm not going to speak. I would rather wait to get a legal opinion on anything to that effect. But yes, you should be cautious of others in the room.
So Well, I was just gonna say, how does everybody? I was the one that brought it up, so I want to know does everybody else feel about obtaining information from staff representatives, and board committee chairs when making reappointment decisions? That's appropriate, inappropriate. You like the idea? Don't like the idea?
Would have to be completely confidential, I would think.
It's been an on again, off again thing where we've asked the chairs whether or not appropriate to reappoint somebody. We've done that in the past, and with all the discussions about merger and then separation, we forgot about a lot of things that we used to do, and we just abandoned them because we just had so much stuff on our plates that we stopped doing them. So we have in the past done that. Asked the chairs.
So they had it, so they originally used to have an opportunity to have input into your appointment?
We also used to not, well, yeah, way back, we interviewed everybody, and then we went away from that again, even reappointments. We stopped interviewing reappointments again for this, I guess, for the same reason, because it was a lot of work to everybody come in and do it. But yeah, we did offer the chair's opportunity to comment on whether or not to, did not do it in an open meeting.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So then my other part of that was the staff. Is it appropriate to ask the staff for one, attendance records, and then the second one would be, staff's opinion on I don't know the right word. I don't want to use the word of, I don't want to put a value on it, but on engagement. So does the person show up? Do they engage in the meeting? From somebody outside of the, the staff representative would be not, possibly somebody's friend who's the chair, or you know what I mean. It's a separate person, employee of the town, which is under Greg, and then Greg gets that information and Greg gives that information. I don't know how that works. I think attendance is very important.
And I think that there's a point where we add too much friction, and if we're expecting the chair and staff representative to comment on every single request for reappointment in this case, it becomes a little micromanagey. But from my view, as long as there's a mechanism and folks are aware that if there are concerns, that they can provide those concerns to Greg to ultimately bring those to us, I'm comfortable with how things work currently, as long as that's understood that there are concerns, please bring them to us confidentially through Greg.
Well, and all staff requests go to Greg anyway. I learned that.
But could a committee or commission under our charter, a member couldn't be removed for attendance, unlike the select board?
I don't believe.
Yeah.
Some of the different boards and committees have their own operating procedures, and they have level of attendance. It's not across the board. Some of them do, and some, and I think it then becomes a recommendation to the select board to remove such. I can't remember how many boards have that. Not all.
Ken just said his committee does.
That was my only concern. There was attendance, really.
But that might be an opportunity.
More or less of them involvement. Like involvement's really the small part for me. If that's on too much to ask, but like the fact that you can be, I know the select board's an elected position, but there's an expectation of all of our, I like to call it volunteerism, but we are paid slightly.
Well, that might be an
But there's an
opportunity for
expectation of-
standardization,
yeah,
right? If some committees
across the
have
board.
that and some don't, it may be the conversation with the staff representatives to identify whether that's an opportunity where we could, have one standard across the board.
Yeah, those are my only a couple
Okay.
thoughts from there.
We want to open it to public comment? there is any.
I've seen it.
Yep.
I think the word is performance. That's what you're looking for.
Performance.
There you go. Another scenario where Ken Signorello, by the way, for the notes, the minutes, where a select board member might go to the planning commission and need to participate in the meeting if you're in a butter for a development. It might be another situation besides being applicant. All right, so let's see. I'm on one committee and one commission. I don't know whether to thank you or to curse you, but I'm on two. I think it's really important that you hear from each committee or commission at least once a year on a schedule. I think that should be planned out and ahead of time, and I think you should encourage ad hoc updates as well. I gave you a little sample of those from the Conservation and Trails Committee. Take 1 minute, 2 minutes, something significant happens. We just planted a tree over at the Essex Middle School. You hear about it. A nice little thing. So I would recommend that for sure. You know, both the Conservation and Trails Committee and the Economic Development Commission have an advisory role. And we'll be giving some advice to the Select Board on Conservation and Trails will be, and we just did give some advice to the Planning Commission from the Economic Development Commission, but you've never asked for any advice. A good example where you might have asked for advice on the Conservation and Trails Committee is the purchase of the 80 and 90 Main Street, Upper Main Street. Might have been something to ask for advice on. So you have commissions and committees with advisory role. I would just suggest ask them for advice from time to time when it makes sense. There's people that know what's going on. Let's see. Select Board attending meetings. I personally, I think it's great for a Select Board member to attend. You know, you make these appointments. I would, if I was making these appointments, I would want to see the performance of the folks that I've appointed. Kind of important, actually. Otherwise, it's like a black box. You really have no idea, except once a year when you might get an update from the commission or committee, or you make a reappointment. So I think that would be great. But as an alternative, you can always watch the recordings when they're available, and you can read the minutes. I think that's another alternative as well. Staff representatives. So there's two scenarios here. So I think it's kind of important that the staff does get an opportunity to give you input on reappointments. I think that does make good sense. Those folks have been there at every meeting, facilitating and helping. They know what's what, who's performing, who's not. They'll be familiar with the attendance. Very important, by the way. If anything, attendance is one objective metric you could always ask about, and I think you really should. When you, especially during a reappointment, first question you might consider asking is, how many meetings have you missed over the course of your term or last year? Something along those lines. I mean, and the Economic Development Commission just created an attendance policy because we have a big problem with attendance. And, you know, about the Housing Commission is having difficulties as well, getting a quorum together. So I think that's really important as well. And I do think that it would be helpful, especially during a reappointment, if you gave chair people an opportunity to say something. For them to preemptively reach out, from my perspective, I don't know if I would do that. I would prefer to be asked, I think. And you might say nothing, or just state the attendance record, something along those lines, just to give you something to work with on a reappointment. Speaking of which, on the Conservation and Trails Committee, I just want you to remember that we're short one member right now. We have a resigned person, so that's why we're currently down to 8. And that gentleman, Paul Davis, I think it is, who applied, could be appointed to that vacant seat for, it doesn't expire in June. It must have at least another year to go, that trustee's seat, as an aside. I think that's pretty much all I had to say on the topic. I definitely want to see the Select Board be interested at the very least. And again, we're advisory. Well, I suggest you ask for advice from time to time. I think that's probably the one message that I feel a little bit left out in that regard, I suppose. We're trying to reach out. We're going to be doing something for the Select Board giving you some advice on how to use some conservation funds shortly for conservation and trails. Economic Development Commission has reached out and given advice to the Planning Commission. I should say that the Conservation and Trails Committee also does give advice to the Planning Commission on every development. That we are doing that. And I have seen those notes incorporated in the staff reports. Appreciate it. Last, give chair people the opportunity to evaluate their representative staff members as well. I think that's kind of important as well. Sometimes you might have a not a good fit and you might want to make a change. Possible. So I think that works two ways. I think the staff should have something to say about reappointments, and I also think that the chairs should have something to say about their staff representatives as well. Any questions? I'm really entrenched at this point, the process.
Any questions?
Good point.
Good suggestion, though.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks.
And somebody by the name of Janet has their hand up.
Oh, Janet, go ahead.
Hey.
Hi, darling.
Oh, no.
Andy knows this because we probably talk more than we should about everything that's going on. But the library trustees, we do have a line in our bylaws that say that if somebody misses 3 meetings in a row, we will have a discussion. It doesn't say what we're going to do, but it's more along the lines of, you know, was there a reason for all the absences, a health issue, something like that, that we will have a discussion. And my tenure on the library trustees, which is like 16 years, I've only known of it happening once. So that's happened. I think it's a great idea to have all the committees have something similar. But you know, so we have it already. So I just wanted to let everybody know that.
But for the record, that was Janet Watts.
Hello, darling.
Yeah, in case that wasn't clear. Do we want to have further discussion about this item, or are we ready to move on?
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go home.
Okay. Do we need an executive session this evening?
Me if you want one.
Yes.
You want to go home.
Okay, with that, moving along to the reading file.
Madam Chair, I would like to thank Ally Vile for her many, since she's gone before we had another meeting. Thank Ally Vile for her many years of service to Essex Parks and Rec, and to thank Daniel Parkins for his service to the Planning Committee.
Agreed on both.
I'd like to remind folks that there's a vote tomorrow for the school budget.
Yes, there is that.
Just a reminder.
I dropped my ballots in the box when I came here this evening. I did just want to point out the reappraisal coffee talk for the town and the city. I believe that's next Wednesday, the 15th.
I think that's an awesome idea, because there's so much misinformation.
Agreed. Thanks to staff for running with that.
I just have a comment. / question. Is that allowed? But if for the strategic planning, if anything wasn't on the, like, we're gonna be able to have any other comments or?
No.
Okay. I was gonna say,
I'm kidding you.
I saw it was posted on there, and I'll be totally honest with you. I spent a week building fence and moving cows, and I didn't make the Wednesday cutoff. But I have a list of comments, and I didn't know
I gave him mine
if,
tonight.
if they weren't warned, if I could give them to you. Or,
Yeah, no, that would be great. If you want to get
Okay.
stuff to them.
I know we did. I know we've done that in the past. I didn't know if we changed our operating for Wednesday, but I just wanted to throw that out there before I got all upset
so
on Wednesday.
Marguerite and I chatted briefly when I'm done, gave
Okay.
her comments. So what we'll do is, if you want to give me that list, we can include it. We'll share with the entire board ahead of time.
Yeah.
We'll just pass the deadline to update the packet, so we won't do that, but we bring it to you for the public to see on Wednesday. We will also update we have an Excel list that we're going to be able to
Show
follow through as
there.
we're at it app, so it'll be available at the
And we have confirmed it's 5 o'clock and not 5:30.
5
5
o'clock.
o'clock, this room will have food.
5
Here.
o'clock Wednesday, May 8th. Great.
I'll be here tomorrow night combing ballots,
Yeah.
but
I forgot all about it.
school vote.
Any other items for the reading file? With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion, we adjourn.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Ethan. Motions to adjourn are non-debatable. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.